or just anyone, and he has always been a baby. It was always his autism that made him who he was. I don't know why, but he always had a crush on me. I rejected him gently multiple times, but he never took no for an answer. As we grew older, he got worse. He started commenting on my chest. Asking to touch them. Asking to see them. His friends kept trying to convince me to show him because nobody would be nice enough to give him a chance. And in year 7, 6th grade, he started groping me. I told teachers, but they kept saying that his autism doesn't make him know any better. It was only me. He got jealous when I was in the presence of another guy. He would have meltdowns and I got into trouble because I knew how upset he would get. No, I didn't. It was like my only purpose was to be his. I wasn't allowed to be my own person. The groping continued. I kept telling him to stop. He didn't listen. I remember crying on the floor and teachers just kept saying that his autism makes him like this and that I'm being a good person by taking care of him. His groping hurt. I don't know how to explain it. He just grabbed my chest and butt hard. And it hurts. The groping continued for 4 years. I was always his caretaker, his girlfriend, his best friend, his. I couldn't stand it anymore. I couldn't take it anymore. It was hot and I wore a skirt and he proceeded to put his hands up my skirt and groped my butt. I lost it and punched him around the nose. His nose got broken and unfortunately now I am getting put into isolation for 2 months for bullying an autistic kid. He's not a kid though. He's 16 years old. He acts normal around his friends. He treats everyone else with respect. He's not a kid. Now everyone hates me. I have been receiving death threats and people have been saying he should have done worse. Now all I want to do is curl up and die. Maybe I should have been nicer. Maybe I should have been more sympathetic. Maybe I should have just accepted it. I could have been his only chance. For the record, I don't despise autistic people. He is not a representative of them. He is just an awful person. Troy is just a horrible person. Thank you for letting me vent. Edit. Hi all. I didn't expect so much attention, so thank you for the validation. Giving my context. His parents are prominent people in our community. His dad is a third-generation Army something, IDK, and his mom is known for always holding all of the stuff for kids. Like the summer fairs, etc. She is also part of the school board and friends with the higher-ups if you will, which is why this happened at all. I wasn't technically his caretaker because I didn't have to feed him, clothe him, etc. I just had to be his friend. His dad is also friends with the police station, they go way back, so that's another reason why they didn't do much. Or just took a statement then wrote him off as mentally disabled. And the police here just suck ass here. Police officers have essayed many women before here. They just get let off. Unfortunately. Onto a semi-update. Firstly, my parents will look into lawyers, we just couldn't afford one, and I was always too scared to get one. I guess it was because I have been so neglected, that I just thought nobody would believe me. However, my other relatives said that they would chip in and pay for a good lawyer. Meanwhile, my parents took me out of the school and I will stay at my grandma's for a while to recover. My auntie is also going to pay for my therapy. So I will enjoy that much needed therapy. Thank you so much for the kind words. I hope you all miraculously wake up with more money in your bank's accounts than you expected. Edit 2. Hi all, I didn't expect this story to end up on TikTok so quickly. I would like to thank you all again for your words and thank you so much to those who have been reaching out to me. It means a lot. I would also like to point out that this is a throwaway account, and I want to stay anonymous. But thank you all so much again for the kind words and comments. I realize that I was never in the wrong. That I am a person. Thank you. I truly hope you all have the best days ever. You all are amazing. Relevant comments from OOP. Comment 1. Is the kid cognitively challenged? OP, nope, he has mild autism if that makes sense. He's actually quite good around people. Just not me. IG. Comment 2. I would get law enforcement involved. OP, we tried to. They just didn't care because he is mentally challenged. My parents genuinely tried to do something, but when everyone defends him, they believe the majority. I mean, when I usually say this story, people automatically think I hate autistic people. I don't. Because autistic people don't do this. Horrible people do. Autism isn't the label for assault, the label is sexual assaulter. Update. Firstly, I would like to thank you all so much for your kind words and messages. Thank you for your support and validation, your words meant so much to me. Also, I thought I would explain the whole I hope you all miraculously wake up with more money in your bank account comment. I heard someone in TikTok say this and thought it would be a nice thing to say, as some people did question it in my messages. But yeah, thank you all again. Before this update starts, I would like to say that this all occurred like 2 weeks ago now. I just reached my breaking point and needed to vent. Hence why the update may be soon to some. This won't be the final update, but an update. I would also like to clear the air with my parents. Now unfortunately, my parents come from a country where this stuff is normal. Not only that, but I am partially to blame as I didn't say anything. Eventually I did tell them and they tried their best to help me. But they didn't know how. Though I do acknowledge their efforts, I am still going to be taking time to heal from them as well. My entire family also had a go at them and expressed their disappointment. The best thing for now is for me to spend some time apart from them. So to begin, I left the school. After my parents had heard that I got into trouble seriously because of Troy again, they basically thought it was time to pull me out. I am due to start my new school in 2 weeks. I have also been trying to settle at my grandma's house as I just needed a fresh start with fresh people. To be honest, I have never felt so free. I have had to deal with that torment for years and years. So now I can enjoy the pleasure of walking home and not seeing him or bumping into him. So I feel great. On to the serious stuff. As I had mentioned, my family basically decided to pay for a lawyer, and we are now hoping to have a lawsuit against basically everyone involved. My grandma also had a go to put nicely with the school's board for basically allowing nepotism to harass other girls. She called all of the teachers a disgrace for endangering not only me but other people and saying how none of the teachers who allowed this deserved to even step foot into a school. This experience has also not been all sunshines and daisies. After the suit was claimed or made, IDK, my parents got letters and messages basically asking for the case to be dropped. My parents obviously said no. But it still didn't stop the harassment. I eventually got harassed too. All of the people giving me death threats decided to go into graphic detail on what Troy wanted to do to me. Spoiler, it wasn't great. And Troy's parents showed up on my doorstep demanding to see me and talk to me and how Troy is ready to apologize. Thankfully by then my uncle and I had been on the way to my grandma's house. However, my parents obviously didn't let them in regardless and said that if they wanted to communicate it had to be through a lawyer. The harassment didn't stop. And eventually Troy sent me a message on a burner account detailing all of the things he was going to do if got the opportunity to, and that I should be grateful that I managed to walk away with just a groping. Troy also kept spewing on about how I'm nothing but a whore or slut, etc. And I should be grateful that someone so popular even looked my way. He kept saying how if I had just let him fuck me, he wouldn't have groped me. However, I know if I did that I would no longer be myself. I would be his property forever. The thought of that makes me want to vomit. Also, his logic doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, I just got receipts and blocked him. I also asked my parents to help me change my number. And I did. My grandma, being the person she is, decided that wasn't good enough and got me a whole new phone. She claims it's compensation for my trauma. Thanks, Grandma. I am starting therapy the day after tomorrow and I am hoping to start family therapy in August as, truthfully, I don't know if I'm mad at my parents or should be mad. Like, is it my fault for not saying anything? But that's all the update I can give you for now. The lawsuit will be a whole other process and hopefully if I remember I can update you all again. Thank you so much for your words. I truly appreciate all of you. I hope this update is clear enough for you and apologies if you made it this far. An old friend of mine has been acting inappropriately towards my daughter. I am taking steps to protect her. The last few months I've been chatting to a friend more regularly than before. We've been friends for over a decade and we used to be really close but we slowly drifted apart. I should probably mention we are both men in our 40s. It's been great catching up with him and honestly I really needed a friend so it's just been great. He's got a long-term girlfriend and 2 young children. A couple of months ago we visited his house for the first time. He recently moved and we weren't speaking much before that, just an occasional comment on Facebook. And me, my 14-year-old son and 20-year-old daughter spent a few hours honestly just chatting about nothing but in a good way, you know. While we were there I noticed that he kept looking at my daughter out of the corner of his eye. I never really caught him fully looking so I thought nothing of it, especially as he has known my kids for over a decade. I didn't mention it to my daughter as I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable if it was nothing. A couple of months went past and we visited them again. He kept talking to my daughter and not really to me, which is fine but it just seemed odd when my daughter has really bad anxiety, and she can't really hold a conversation, and she makes it clear when she's uncomfortable talking. He just seemed to keep looking at her and talking. Even if he was talking to me, he would just look at her. The final straw was last week. We visited them and we've been having a heat wave so we were all dressed in as minimal as possible. My daughter in a thin pair of skirts and a t-shirt, My son in a pair of athletic shorts and a gym top and me in a polo shirt and white chino shorts. Nothing unusual, just basic summer wear. When we were in conversation he would look at my daughter. When anyone told a joke he would smirk a little or give a small laugh depending, but if my daughter told something mildly funny he would really laugh to the point that even she would look awkward. He kept dropping out of conversation and just staring at her. I think she noticed it as well because she started to lean back in her chair to try to cover herself. Even though she was fine. She looked uncomfortable. Then when the sun set she put on a thick jacket and zipped it up. I don't know if he's just trying to be friendly and he doesn't know how to act or if he's only inviting us round to stare at her, and if so then I don't know what to do. Yes, she's 20 but she's still my little girl and this man watched her grow up. It just seems strange. I don't know if I should say something or just don't go around there again. Either way, I think it's the end of the friendship, which is a shame, but oh well. Update. Edits at the end of post update from my last post. I spoke to my daughter about the whole thing and wanted to know what she thought about it all because I didn't want to say anything if she didn't think it was odd. She told me that after the first time we saw him again, a few months ago, he had appeared outside her work after she finished her shift and asked if she wanted a lift home instead of getting the bus. She said that since he was a good friend of mine she trusted him and got in his car. On the ride home he repeatedly touched her leg and started talking about how much she's changed since he saw her last, before we all met up, and how much of an adult she looks now. He told her she's growing into her body like a good girl. My daughter said that she would walk the rest of the way home because she didn't want to put him out too much, but he insisted on driving her all the way. She said she kept moving away from him but he was leaning to touch her knees. She said that at a red light not long before the house he gave her his mobile number and texted himself from her phone and told her to call him if she wanted a lift or anything else. Then when she got home she went to leave the car but he grabbed her arm and asked her where his hug and kiss goodbye was. Not a new thing, he gives us all a hug every time. And when she leaned in he held her tight and whispered that she should call him. In the last few months since then he has repeatedly been sending her explicit texts and images and waiting outside her work asking her if she would like a lift home, even though every time she said no. She said she didn't want to say anything because she didn't want to upset me as he was the only friend I had. I feel sick thinking about this. This is my daughter. She's 20 but she's still my little girl and I feel like I've put her in danger. I've messaged him asking him to stop contacting my family and I've sent him the screenshots from her phone as reasons why, but he is messaging me asking me why when she is an adult and the only sleazy thing he's done is cheat on his girlfriend, as my daughter never physically said the word stop, she just ignored him. I'm so angry at him and myself. Edit. I'd like to say thanks to everyone for the advice. Also I've been getting a lot of mom comments and although I appreciate the sentiment very much, I am her dad. Unfortunately her mum passed away quite a few years ago, but I really appreciate that everyone thought I was her mum. It really is the biggest compliment to me. I must be doing something right. We went and spoke to our local police and they couldn't really help us as she had willingly gotten into his car. They did say that as we have spoken to him already, they could keep a file open and if it continues then they would be able to take action. Honestly it seems that they don't really care about it at all, which is alarming and upsetting. We sent the screenshots and an explanation to his girlfriend and we've had some missed calls from him, but that's not our problem. We've blocked him on everything and have completely removed him from every social media. My daughter has spoken to her work and they have said that until she is able to find another job they will ensure that at least one other member of staff will wait with her for the bus and I will be meeting her at the first stop in our town to take her directly home on days I'm not working, and on days I am, then her grandparents will be picking her up. She is safe. I also had a lot of comments suggesting I get violent with this man. Although I do appreciate that a lot of people would be choosing the other route of resolving the problem face to face, I'm not like that. I'd like to be. I'd like to say that there's no problem I couldn't solve that way. But that's simply not me. It doesn't make me a bad dad either. I found another way to solve the problem and make sure my daughter is safe and comfortable. Thank you all for your help and advice. It's nice to find some support through the internet sometimes. Relevant comments. Commenter. It's not your fault, but you need to have a sit down and talk through the socialization for women to be nice and how to get past that mental block. This is something a lot of us go through, and it puts us in really awful situations. Help her understand that her safety is the most important thing. She doesn't have to be nice or put up with things like this. There's probably some very eloquent people who can speak to this topic on YouTube. It's not me, but I want to make sure she knows she doesn't have to take this shit for the rest of her life, even with the anxiety and desire not to rock any boats. OP. I've told her many times growing up that if she doesn't feel comfortable doing something, no matter what it is, then she needs to say that. It doesn't matter if it upsets someone or offends someone. All that matters is that she is safe and comfortable. I'm hoping that she will be like this from now on, and I just hope that she knows I'm here for her no matter what. Also, there's an update to the post. Thank you for your comment. Get her a weapon. We're in the UK, so she's legally not allowed any weapons, including pepper spray. The only thing she is allowed is an alarm, which she already had anyway. We are looking into some objects which can be carried around legally or discreetly. Currently we are looking into a keyring, which is like a long sharpened stick, though there's not many places willing to ship them to us. I'm so very sorry to hear what you have been through, and I wish you well throughout your life.
Narcissistic mom abandoned me as a teen for her boyfriend, who later left her. Now she's lonely and angry I'm keeping her away. I am a 25-year-old woman who has not had any contact with my mother for the past 5 years, because she threw me out when I was 20 to make room for her new boyfriend. Her ex-boyfriend at the time, whom we will call Rick, was a blatant gold digger who did not even try to hide his intentions. My mother had been dating Rick for about 3 months before she decided to bring him home. Foolishly, she didn't even inform him that she had a daughter until after he was already there. My mom, who is now 50, was almost 45 at the time, but she lied to everyone, claiming she was not a day older than 40. She managed to maintain this deception with the help of fillers and Botox. As for Rick's age, I am not entirely sure, but he must have been in his early to mid-30s, certainly not older than that. He was reasonably attractive, and considering my mother is also quite attractive for her age, I initially thought they made a good couple. However, my opinion quickly changed when Rick started boasting about how wonderful it was that my mother had a substantial amount of her own money. He claimed to admire her for being a strong, independent, wealthy woman, which he said was the reason he wanted to be with her. Although those were his words, I am convinced that it was actually our enormous house, the spacious living room, and the obviously expensive decor that truly drew him to my mother. It was widely known that my mother's wealth was solely due to the substantial inheritance she received from her parents. She was an heiress, and that essentially defined her existence. She never had a career of her own. So while it was true she was wealthy, I found it hard to see her as strong or independent. She never had to lift a finger for anything in her life. Her parents had built a successful company from the ground up, and upon their passing, the company was handed over to her uncle, who has been managing it ever since. My mother had no involvement in the business operations and showed no interest in learning about it. As long as she received the money she was entitled to, she didn't concern herself with anything else. My mother indulged in various hobbies, but she never pursued any with the dedication or focus needed to turn them into a genuine career. This attitude extended to motherhood as well. I am fairly certain that I was simply a hobby for her because she was bored. I am certain that if she hadn't been bored, she would have terminated the pregnancy, and I wouldn't be here. In a strange way, I am fortunate that my mother is so fickle and indecisive because it led to my birth. Additionally, I am lucky that my grandparents were good-hearted people who stepped in to raise me in her absence. My mom likely lost interest in being pregnant midway and decided she wasn't cut out for motherhood. After I was born, she frequently left me with my grandparents while she spent most of her time partying or socializing with her friends. It's no exaggeration to say that as a child I genuinely believed my grandparents were my parents. I have no idea who my father is because my mother conceived me after a one-night stand, and had no means of contacting him. So she simply didn't. Fortunately, my grandparents were affectionate and nurturing individuals who never made me feel the void left by my absent parents. I never knew my father, and my mother never allowed me to build a relationship with her. So my grandparents were essentially my only family. For a time I was content with this arrangement. However, my grandmother passed away during my junior year, and a couple of years later, my grandfather also passed. This left me devastated, as I felt I had lost the only people who genuinely cared about me. Thankfully, I still had my uncle, who stepped in to support me. Although my uncle and I were never as close as I had been with my grandparents and didn't communicate often, he assured me he would be there for me, and he truly lived up to that promise. I had never permanently resided with my grandparents. I always lived with my mother but visited them every weekend. My mother was rarely home during the day, so I was accustomed to being alone after school, which allowed me ample time to complete my homework and enjoy my activities around the house. After my grandparents passed away, I went off to college but made a point to return home at least one weekend each month and during the holidays. This wasn't out of a desire to maintain contact with my mother but rather to seek the comfort of my childhood home. When I returned, my mother's presence was something I had to accept. Throughout my life, Mom stayed the same, a shallow, self-centered narcissist with no regard for the world. Her actions seemed predictable to me. She had many boyfriends but none of them lasted. Some lovers were concerned about her lively social life, which included many male acquaintances, while others were simply victims of her boredom and were dumped with no regard for their feelings. I had encountered many of my mother's boyfriends, and each breakup was marked by loud arguments and shouting that I could clearly hear from my room, which was directly above the living room. My mother never seemed to make an effort to keep any of them around, likely because she didn't care enough about them. However, when she began dating Rick, it was the first time I couldn't predict what would happen. Everything changed with him, and it was surprising that my mother didn't realize he was a gold digger, especially since she usually spotted such things easily. I previously mentioned that my mother brought Rick home for the first time after 3 months of dating, coincidentally on a weekend when I was there. When I politely greeted him, Rick looked confused because he hadn't expected my presence. It was only then that my mother informed him she had a daughter, which visibly unsettled him for a brief moment before he regained his usual charming demeanor. Despite his charm, I could immediately see through Rick and knew he wasn't genuinely interested in my mother. Throughout dinner, his primary focus was on how fortunate he was to have found such a wealthy and independent woman. He couldn't stop praising her beauty and independence, emphasizing how impressed he was to have won her over. It was clear he was trying to flatter her, and unfortunately, it was working. Rick was particularly interested in my mother's riches, which appeared to impress him the most. It was brutally clear that his primary interest was her money. After supper, my mother told me that she had invited Rick to stay with us for a few weeks since he had recently lost his job and needed a place to stay before his landlord evicted him. Suddenly, his excessive flattery made sense. He needed a place to stay, and my mother was his ticket to free lodging. I wanted to warn my mom, but I usually refrained from commenting on her relationships, because I believed she knew what she was doing. Additionally, we didn't have the kind of relationship where I felt comfortable discussing such matters with her. I chose not to say anything because I wanted to give Rick the benefit of the doubt, unaware that this decision would ultimately backfire. A few weeks went by, and I didn't return home until the following month. Since my mother and I didn't stay in touch while I was at college, I had no idea how things were progressing between her and Rick. When I finally came back home, I discovered that Rick had essentially taken over my mother's house, transforming it into a complete bachelor pad. Surprisingly, my mother didn't seem to mind at all. The place was a mess, but she assured me that the housekeeper would have everything cleaned up by the next morning. While this was true, it was still unexpected, given that my mother had always been a bit of a neat freak. Once again, I felt it wasn't my place to comment on the situation. Throughout the weekend, Rick and I didn't interact at all, and I hardly left my room. Just like every other weekend before that, I only stayed for 2 days and had no intention of engaging with anyone. I kept to myself, staying out of everyone's way and focusing on my own business. The only times I went downstairs were for meals, and even then, I would just take my food back to my room to eat alone. To clarify, I had not spoken to Rick at all throughout the weekend, yet he still had an issue with my presence and disliked that I had come home. On the day I was supposed to leave, my mother came into my room and said she needed to discuss something important with me. This was unusual since we typically had nothing to talk about, so I anticipated bad news, which it indeed was. She explained that she would prefer if I didn't come back home after that month because Rick felt uncomfortable having me around. He claimed he wanted it to be just the two of them and that my presence over the weekend had completely ruined the vibe. Apparently, he thought he and my mother had a good rhythm going, which I had disrupted by coming home in the middle of the month. He felt suffocated by the family atmosphere and wasn't ready for that kind of environment yet. It was obvious to me that Rick was bluffing. He wanted me out of the picture and was using flimsy excuses to achieve that. It was highly insulting because this was my home first, and he was the one disrupting the vibe by being there and making a mess. I decided to ask my mom when Rick was planning to leave since he wasn't supposed to stay there permanently. She had initially said he would stay for just a couple of weeks until he found a new job and got back on his feet. Unfortunately, that question set my mom off, and she snapped that it was none of my business. She emphasized that it was her house, and as an adult, I needed to clear out and stay away. She was serious about this guy, and whatever he wanted would go. If he wanted me gone, she would ensure that happened. Realizing it was pointless to argue, I told my mom that Rick was just a gold digger, and she would regret kicking me out for him. She didn't seem to care, and neither did I, so I packed my things and left that very day. For the following couple of months until Christmas, I stayed away from what was clearly no longer my home. However, when Christmas came and the winter break started, the campus dorms closed, and I needed a place to stay. I decided to reach out to my uncle. Although we had kept in touch, we were not particularly close, making it awkward to ask him for help. Nonetheless, I had no other option. My grandparents had set aside a college fund for me, so my education was covered. But they hadn't anticipated this situation. When I called my uncle, he kindly offered to let me stay with him and his family for a while. I was deeply grateful and always will be for him opening his home and making me feel like part of the family. During this time we connected, and he explained why he had never tried to build a closer relationship with me. Growing up, he and my mother had a strained relationship, and he felt that trying to bring me into his family might offend her or cause drama, which he wanted to avoid. As long as I was being looked after, he preferred to stay on the sidelines. However, once his sister kicked me out, he had no choice but to step in because he couldn't let me be homeless. We had an honest heart-to-heart conversation, and from that moment on, he became my primary family. His wife, who is the kindest woman I've known since my grandmother, and his kids, who are like the brothers I never had, welcomed me warmly. Following that particular Christmas, I began spending a lot of time with my uncle's family, essentially becoming a part of it. After graduating from college, I needed somewhere to live temporarily until I secured a job and could support myself. It was during this period that I learned my mother and Rick had broken up shortly after she kicked me out. Although I didn't know the specific details, most people said it was because Rick had been unfaithful, cheating on her with another woman. The irony was clear: she had kicked me out to pursue a different lifestyle with Rick. But it all turned out to be for nothing. Despite this, my mother, being the self-centered narcissist that she is, did not reach out to apologize after their breakup. I was relieved that she didn't, because I had nothing to say to her. Our relationship was over. From that point onward, my uncle and his family became my only family. I never relied on my mother when my grandparents were around, and with my uncle's support now, I still don't need her. It's been years since I've had any contact with her, and a lot has changed in my life. I am now married and have a child of my own. 2 years ago, I met my husband John, at a job I took after graduating. It was meant to be a short-term position, and I never expected that John and I would end up together. However, here we are, 2 years later, with our daughter. She was born just 3 months ago, and I already love her more than anyone else. She brings immense joy to our lives and makes everything better. In my excitement, I made the mistake of sharing our news on social media. Throughout my pregnancy, I kept it quiet, and only John, my uncle, and a few close friends knew about it. I've never been very active on social media because I strongly believe in the evil eye. However, after my daughter's birth, I couldn't resist announcing it to the world. Posting about my daughter's birth on social media turned out to be a mistake, because it led to my mother discovering that I was pregnant and had given birth. After 5 years of no contact, she finally reached out to me. This happened last week, and I had mixed feelings about it. She sent me an email, mentioning that some of my family members had informed her about the baby. She expressed a desperate desire to meet her granddaughter. The email was quite lengthy, and my first action was to check if she had included an apology. Unfortunately, there was none. True to her character, she focused on how difficult her life had been since her breakup with Rick, and how she still had trust issues from that toxic relationship. She elaborated on how lonely she had become, pointing out that all her former friends now had families of their own, or were occupied with hobbies and work, unlike her. She lamented that she was constantly lonely because she had no family to talk to since I left, and her friends were always too busy for her. Now, she wanted to mend our relationship and reconnect with me. She admitted to being tired of spending every day alone and acknowledged that she was getting older and couldn't handle the solitude anymore. She implored me to accept her back into the family. While the email was indeed sad, it did nothing to soften my resolve. I had decided a long time ago, essentially from the day she chose her boyfriend over me, that she was not going to be my mother. Sure, it was distressing to know that she was now sad and lonely, but I didn't feel obligated to make her feel like part of a family again. She had 25 years to make me feel like I was part of her family and genuinely her daughter. But she never did. She was always too engrossed in her own life, and now I am engrossed in mine. She never treated me like her daughter, so I don't feel compelled to treat her like my mother. It's as simple as that. The email was also infuriating. She never once thought it necessary to apologize for what she did. It was absurd that she wrote an entire page about her suffering without considering how difficult it must have been for me to grow up with a mother who didn't care about me. Yes, I was fortunate to have grandparents who loved me and an uncle who looked out for me, but that doesn't replace a mother's love. For years as a child I wondered why I wasn't good enough for my mom and tried everything to win her over. It wasn't until middle school that I realized it wasn't my fault, it was hers. But those years are gone, and I will never stop wondering why she even had me if she wasn't interested in being a mother. There was no apology for any of that, and I might have been able to overlook it, but she didn't even consider it necessary to apologize for kicking me out of her house 5 years ago. She knew how challenging it would be for me since I wasn't close to my uncle at that time, and my grandparents were no longer around, yet she seemed indifferent to all of it. Her only concern was her own happiness and Rick's. After reading that email, all the anger and frustration I had been allowing to build up inside of me just bubbled up to the surface. Instead of just ignoring the email, I decided to respond to it. Let me just tell you guys, it was not a nice email that I wrote out to her. I called her all sorts of derogatory names and said that she was not even fit to be a part of society, let alone be a mother. I expressed that I would have preferred being an orphan over being born to someone like her who had no respect for herself or anyone else. I told her she deserved Rick because he was just as shallow, stupid, and selfish as she was. It was unfortunate that the two narcissists didn't stay together because they truly deserved each other. I made it clear that I would never allow her to meet my family because, despite our blood relation, I wanted nothing to do with her and intended to keep it that way. I sent a very angry email without bothering to hold back. Of course, my mom was pretty shocked and upset because of it. Within a few hours of that email, I heard back from her, and she said exactly what I had thought just a few minutes after sending that email. She said that if I was that mad at her, then I shouldn't have responded to her email at all instead of saying those horrible things to her. She told me that she knew she had made a lot of mistakes as a mother, but this was her trying to make the situation better between us by reaching out to me after so many years and trying to be a part of her granddaughter's life. But if I didn't want that, I could have just said so instead of taking things so far and saying such horrible things to her. Honestly, I feel like a kind of jerk because of the things that I said. It wasn't even as though I had used nice language in that email either. It had been a really nasty curse-filled email, and I really regret sending it. I could tell from her response that she was very upset and angry, and I feel kind of bad because I know for a fact that she is really old and lonely now, and that email couldn't have been easy to receive. I feel like I owe her an apology, but at the same time, I don't want her to get the wrong idea. So, am I the asshole for sending my estranged mother a rude email after she reached out to me after my daughter was born but didn't apologize? Update 1. Hey everyone, thank you so much for all the love and support you have shown us. My daughter is doing great, and we really appreciate your concern. John and I talked extensively about the email from my mother, and we concluded that I do not owe her an apology. Maybe my response was a bit harsh, but it was not wrong. She had always treated me like a stranger, and now, in her old age and loneliness, she wants to play happy family because she has no one else. That's not fair, and what's worse is that she didn't even think she needed to apologize to me first for what she did. So now, she can complain all she wants, but it won't change the fact that she was a terrible mother, and I'm glad she's out of my life. I don't see myself ever wanting to reconnect with her because, even when I lived with her, it felt like living with a stranger. I never saw her as my mother, so introducing her to my daughter and calling her grandma would be incredibly strange. That title is reserved for family, and she has never been family to me. I also discussed this with my uncle and aunt, and they agree with my stance. They told me I have no reason to feel guilty because my mother brought this on herself. She has been disconnected from her family her entire life, not just from me but also from my uncle. He believes it's only fair. I might have gone a bit overboard with the email, but she shouldn't have expected anything else after reaching out to me 5 years after kicking me out and then demanding to see my daughter. She didn't even bother to apologize, which is something I will never forget or forgive. Regardless, I'm willing to let the whole episode go and move on because I'm not interested in her drama. Right now, the only person who truly needs me is my daughter. I can't be there for her if I'm entangled in arguments with my mother or trying to prove her wrong. It's pointless, so she can keep sending nasty emails. They're all going to spam, and I won't even read them. Update 2. So I don't know why, but my mother thought that it would be appropriate to pay me a visit just 2 weeks after I told her that I was not interested in making things right with her. I was at home today because I'm on maternity leave right now, and John was out for work, so I didn't think much before opening the door when the bell rang. Unfortunately, I didn't check who it was outside because it was around the time that John usually comes home from work, so I just assumed it must be him. However, it wasn't him. It was my mom. I'm betting she must have asked some ignorant relative of mine for my address, and they, like morons, gave it to her without considering the repercussions. But as soon as I saw it was my mother, I summoned all of my resolve and closed the door. She was taken aback because she had clearly expected me to let her in because it was impolite to kick someone out after you had already opened the door. I was not concerned about being civil or polite. My primary goal was to get her away from me, and I was determined to do whatever was necessary to achieve that. After locking the door, she began screaming at me from the other side and became completely hysterical. I was on the verge of calling the police when she decided to throw a rock through my glass window. She did this and then quickly fled. Fortunately, my daughter was safe in her nursery, and I was the only person near the door, so I wasn't hurt either. The only thing damaged was my window. I immediately called the police and pressed charges against her. Now, I am just waiting for this situation to be resolved. She was extremely unhappy and kept yelling about how unfair and ungrateful I was, but honestly, I was just relieved that neither John nor my daughter was harmed. This incident was serious, and someone could have been seriously injured if they had been home. As a result, John and I have decided to file for a restraining order against her, and we need to act quickly. We have also informed my uncle about the situation so he can take the necessary precautions and increase security around his house. Update 3. Hello everyone. My mother was sentenced to 6 months of community service and fined a significant amount for her actions. She was also ordered to pay for the damages, and we were able to collect a substantial sum from her. To be honest, I believe the only reason she avoided imprisonment is due to her strong connections and having a very skilled lawyer. However, that's not our concern. We received the money and the restraining order, so we have nothing to worry about for now. John and I had been thinking about moving to a larger house and we believe now is the right time to do it. It will be just me and my family. Wish us luck, you guys.
My husband's sister died from falling down the stairs 6 months ago. Now my husband has suddenly and baselessly accused me of killing her. This is long and ridiculous. Sorry. My 30 husband, Luke, 33, had a sister, Laura, 29. We were all close and saw each other 2-3 times a month, along with their parents. Almost 6 months ago, Laura fell down the stairs at their family home and died. It was a freak accident. There's a window on the half landing and she hit her head on the sill. I was the last person to see her. I was there for less than 10 minutes and she was in her pajamas making coffee. I didn't even stay for a drink, and I struggle with how such a brief and meaningless interaction could have been her last. She deserved so much more. My husband and I have only been married for a year, but we've been together for 4 and have known each other for 20 plus. When Laura's parents found her, they called my husband straight away and we rushed over. We faced the whole thing as a family. In the days after, Luke started quizzing me. Exactly what we talked about. What she was wearing, where we were standing, etc. It progressed to saying I was providing conflicting information, on tiny details he was deliberately misunderstanding, and accusing me of withholding information because I couldn't tell him things like what pajamas she was wearing. This escalated quickly but lasted for less than a week, as I lost my cool and made it clear that I was done answering questions. He didn't bring it up again and I wrote it off as a grief quirk. His behavior was generally that of a normal, grieving person. Last Friday, he outright accused me of murdering her, in front of his parents. Out of the blue. We were all stunned. There was an inquest which recently concluded and there was never any doubt the verdict would be accidental death. He said it was completely obvious and he couldn't believe that no one else could see it. He claims I went through his phone and found his messages with Laura. I have absolutely no idea what messages he's talking about. I have never looked at his phone, and that I went over to confront her and things got out of hand, and I pushed her downstairs. By the end he was shouting about going to the police and getting the inquest overturned, and how I wasn't going to get away with it. Let me be clear, Laura and I had a great relationship. We all did. I have no idea where this has come from, other than these messages I haven't seen, and even then, I don't think there's anything I could ever see on someone's phone that would drive me to murder. It's just ridiculous. He's been with his parents since this happened and will not talk to me at all. I've had some contact with his mom, but she's not being very communicative. The last I heard, she didn't know what messages he was referring to either. I am still completely stunned and I have no idea how to proceed. I made a commitment to be there for him always, and I understand that grief can manifest in strange ways, but part of me feels like my love for him died the second he called me a murderer, and I don't know how we could possibly work through this. I also really don't want to be thought of in this way, and I have no idea if he has said anything to people we know. I obviously haven't. A brain tumor or psychotic break has crossed my mind, and I suggested it to his mother, and she just said she'll talk to him. Other than the questions before, he hasn't been acting odd. Obviously he's been grieving, but he seems sane and sensible other than this. I feel like I'm going mad. Does anyone have any advice at all? TL Doctor, my husband's sister died in a horrible accident, and my husband, for absolutely no reason other than some mystery messages, thinks I murdered her? Edit. It has come to my attention that I accidentally used Laura's real name once in this post. Can I kindly ask anyone who commented who is real name? Delete their comment, as I really don't want this to bleed into my real life. For obvious reasons. Relevant comments. Moral_tack. Fuck no. You don't salvage this. You get a lawyer and get the fuck out. Best case scenario, he has just admitted to sending messages with his sister that he thinks would make you angry enough to kill her over them. I have some ideas about what those might be, and they're all bad. How did the parents react when he did this? OP, when he first laid out the accusation, at his parents' house, both his mother and I just kept asking him about the messages, and all he would say was that I know exactly what messages he was talking about. She was as stunned as me, and his father just said he didn't understand what he was talking about. He's a man of few words, but there was plenty of head shaking. The whole thing was surreal, no one knew how to react. I honestly don't know what kind of lawyer I would even speak to about this. From what I'm aware, the coroner's decision can't be appealed and the police can't launch an investigation into an accidental death. I don't think I'm quite ready for divorce. We haven't spoken since his accusation, and I walked out about 5 minutes after he threw it out, and I have no idea what his frame of mind is. Wonderful Prior 381. You need to get a lawyer to protect yourself in case he does go to the police. I would write down everything that you can remember that happened that day and keep it just in case. He may be having a psychotic break. As stated, don't talk to him or his immediate family or your friends without someone present, or preferably by text or email. Save everything. You need to take his accusations seriously and cover your ass. OP, I was interviewed by the coroner's office after her death, as I was the last person to see her. She died about 3 hours after I saw her, and I'd been to the supermarket and was home by that point. It's all verifiable and was a recorded interview. I haven't spoken to anyone but his mother, and that's only been over messages. She's never been a big texter, but she has seemed very cagey over the past few days. I don't know if this means she's seen the messages. I've asked and been ignored. Grulsh's good. I think they mean to record everything you remember about the day your soon-to-be ex accused you of murder. OP, I'm feeling so freaked out at the idea that he came up with this almost immediately after her death, and has either been sitting on it or planning his confrontation, that I'm basically trying to dissect the past 6 months. Maybe it's time I start writing things down. Right until it happened, things felt very normal. Obviously her death has been felt deeply by all of us and things aren't anything like they were, but there have been no signs of anything like this, even on the day. OP on getting the messages. I'm absolutely desperate to see these messages, because I'm right there with you on the sheer wackiness of what they have to contain. It hadn't occurred to me that they might not exist. I've never known him to lie, but I do think a mental health issue is a real possibility. His relationship with his sister didn't seem odd, and I've never been interested in his phone, but he's never been defensive about it either, so I think you might be right. If I had such incriminating messages, I'd probably worry about them before now. When told to find an old iPad to use to access them, I have his iCloud password. It has a backup from yesterday. I have no idea how to turn this into something I can actually use. It doesn't have a messages folder or any signs of how to use it for anything other than restoring a whole phone, which I don't want to do. Does anyone know how to actually get the messages from this? Sorry to throw a tech support request in. I can't believe I didn't think of this. Huge thanks to the person who suggested it. Update 1. I'm in a bizarre and complex situation with my husband. I have broken the law, and I feel I have no choice but to do so again for my safety. I don't know what type of solicitor I need or what the next steps should look like. We're in England, and I'll try not to editorialize too much. My husband's sister died suddenly at the start of the year. Her death was an accident and there was no suggestion to the contrary. The inquest was recently concluded and a verdict of accidental death returned. I was the last person to see her, but her time of death, which was almost immediate due to her injury, was confirmed to be hours after I had left the house. All of this was verified at the time. In the immediate aftermath, my husband behaved strangely and kept trying to trip up my story of the last time we saw each other, which was a brief interaction. Last week, months after this was first and last mentioned, he outright accused me of murder, in front of his parents. He says I saw his messages with his sister and confronted her, and that he's going to have the coroner's decision overturned and have the police investigate. I haven't seen or heard from him since. Today is day 9. I posted for advice on Reddit. I'm pretty desperate at this point, and it has spooked me, quite reasonably I think, but also led to me committing a crime and planning another. My husband's iCloud credentials were saved on an old iPad in his office, and I downloaded his backup last night. I have read all of his messages with his sister, and there is absolutely nothing like he describes. I understand this is illegal and I'm concerned about the possible ramifications. I am also waiting for a callback from a locksmith to change the locks on the home we own together, which I believe is also against the law. So this leads to my actual questions. I feel justified in what I've done for my safety, but is there a degree of pragmatism under the law for these issues because of the situation? Or am I shooting myself in the foot? I am resigned to the fact my relationship is over, but his parents don't seem to be taking this seriously and they're icing me out. I believe this is a serious mental health issue which may put people, namely me, at risk. Can I do anything about this when all I have is the fact I'm being accused of murder? I feel he needs to be detained and this should be investigated as a full-blown psychotic break. Sorry, this is all a bit mental. In addition, what type of solicitor do I need? My understanding is that a coroner decision can't be appealed. Is that correct? Are his accusations going to go anywhere? Can I protect myself from this or stop him escalating to telling others? We live in our hometown and everyone knows everyone. This could follow me forever and it's either a lie or a delusion. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Relevant comments when told OP can't lock out her husband or force him to get a psych eval. OP. Thank you so much for your response. Locking each other out doesn't sound like a pattern I want to get into, but I think I'll go ahead and change them once on the basis that it isn't you did this so you have to leave the house, and also you'll be prosecuted. Levels of seriousness. In terms of him being deemed to lack capacity, is there any way I can trigger the process that you know of? Is something like this sufficient for the Mental Health Act to kick in? I've been Googling and you can be detained if professionals think your mental health puts you or others at risk, and you need to be in hospital, seems very vague. Obviously I'm biased, but accusing someone of murder and screaming about how they aren't going to get away with it feels like risky behavior. Does he need to have made explicit threats or is there a clearer bar to meet? Sorry for asking so many questions. No firefighter, 9257. You are jumping ahead of yourself and playing out situations that have not occurred. If your husband reports you to the police for accessing his data and you are subsequently arrested or taken in for questioning, then obtain the services of a criminal solicitor for advice. With respect of changing locks, ending your marriage, seek a solicitor that deals with family law divorce. If you feel that you're at risk from your husband, talk to a domestic abuse helpline. If you feel you're at an immediate risk of harm, then call the police. If you think your husband is mentally ill and presents a risk to himself or others, call the police. OP. I don't think that's a fair assessment. Being accused of arguably the most serious crime to exist has most definitely occurred. My understanding of the law is that something is illegal whether you're reported to the police or not. Those messages are evidence, as far as I'm concerned, that his accusations are false. They were apparently the trigger to me literally murdering someone I was extremely close to. I have illegally accessed them, and I don't think it's unreasonable to inquire as to the potential impact of that. I am fully aware that I need a solicitor, but as you're probably aware, today is Sunday. I don't know if I need to seek someone out based on a divorce, which honestly, if this is a mental health issue, is not going to be something I go for, or a criminal solicitor, or someone who deals with the Mental Health Act, as my absolute priority preference is getting him assessed. My only exposure to the legal system in my entire life was through the inquest, and that is obviously completely different to any of this. I'm not educated in this area. Commenter. It's sad and slightly suspicious that OP is jumping ahead to mental health assessments to defend themselves from accusations of murder when their husband is clearly going through some serious issues coping with the death of his sister. OP, what else can I do? He has blocked me everywhere, And we went from a normal couple dealing with the new normal 6 months after the death of his sister, to me being accused of murder over a family dinner because of messages which clearly don't exist, and it's been 9 days and I've heard nothing since. Can I remind you that the inquest was held and concluded? I dropped off some Tupperware, grabbed an umbrella I'd left behind the previous week, went to a big Tesco, then went home and called my mom. I was already home by the time she died, and my whereabouts were extremely easy to verify because my husband was home all day. It's obvious that he's going through some serious issues coping with the death of his sister. That is the exact point of all of this. Update 2. Firstly, thank you to those who helped me get to my husband's iCloud backups through an old iPad. I wasn't expecting much from Reddit, but I got valuable practical advice before my post was locked, and I appreciate it. There were no crazy, or even suspicious messages. I've searched for over 100 terms and scrolled back over the years. I saw a side of them both I wasn't expecting, but nothing that explains the claim I murdered Laura over their chats. Nothing to suggest he was cheating. Absolutely nothing to suggest incest. I repeat, no incest. No weird gaps where deleted conversations or a switch to another app would fit. Just siblings making plans, sending memes, and gossiping. They said unexpectedly horrible stuff about a few people, but not me. It was a sort of relief, but it raised more questions than it answered. I sought legal advice, also from Reddit, after posting here. Turns out my options are divorce him or sit down. I contacted my community mental health team, who said they'd reach out, but made it clear it wasn't urgent. I then called his mom and said that if I didn't hear from him by this weekend, I would get a solicitor and ask for a mental health assessment as part of the divorce. In response, he made a ridiculous post to Facebook, which neither of us have used in years, and everything blew up. I'm going to try to keep this succinct. On Friday night, he made a long accusation on Facebook, with new information. He said he'd been planning to leave me for months with his sister's support, and I found the messages, and murdered her. The coroner has reopened the case and the police are preparing to arrest me, and he needs to make sure people know before the trial stops him talking about it. It was well written and seemed vaguely plausible. He messaged people with links so it got some attention. We live in our hometown, and have a large circle of friends because we've been here all our lives. People I haven't spoken to since school were reaching out to me asking WTF was going on. It was madness. In response, I posted the export of his entire conversation history with Laura, also to Facebook, when I finally got back in. I linked to the chat along with a post explaining my side, and noting that I had changed my ex's iCloud and Apple passwords, and that if he wanted them back, he should comment on my post and update his own, admitting that he was lying. He eventually did. When I started getting messages about his post, I panicked, and changing his password seemed important to preserve everything because he'd know I had access. When I spoke to him the next morning, it's clear he's not having a mental episode at all, but is claiming one because he's been caught in a big lie. As soon as he was outed, he called me, clearly drunk, begging and promising to explain everything if I deleted my post. I hung up and told him to call back the next day. He did, after many missed calls and texts, and he tried to bargain and guilt-trip me with his mental health until it was clear the wrong people had seen his conversation. It's hard to describe, but it seemed fake. It was too well rehearsed, and then this morning, when it was clear he was getting nowhere, he blocked me. Begging for mercy and reciting facts about mental disorders doesn't align with someone in crisis with a sincere belief that someone murdered their sibling. The question of why he did all this remains unanswered, and he will not be getting his passwords until it is. The legal advice subreddit said this stuff is technically illegal, but it's beneath a court to take action, so I'm going to count on that because I felt like I had no other choice at the time, and now I don't see any other way to get answers from him. I am desperate and it's all I've got. So there we are. The relationship I have believed was my destiny since I was a teenager has boiled down to petty, convoluted and vindictive bullshit, played out on social media for reasons still unknown. My hope for a brain tumor is fading, and clearly tomorrow morning is going to be when I lawyer up and stop posting about this. I am mortified. I have no idea whether some people might believe him, and I still don't know why this all happened in the first place. Sorry I don't have a happier update, and thanks once again to everyone who offered advice. I found out my daughter is pregnant. Am I a bad mom for refusing to raise the soon-to-be-born child of my non-binary daughter? My daughter came to me at 16 and said she was non-binary, but only sometimes. Like, some days she would feel more male than female and some days she would feel like neither. She wanted me to ask her every day what day it was and then refer to her as that pronoun of the day. I told her that wasn't going to fly. Growing up, I spent a lot of time on LJ, LiveJournal, during the old Ben Self and Zen Self Seer Self days. People who think this is new to this generation are fooling themselves. I told her that I would call her the pronoun she wanted and do my best to remember it day to day, but she was going to have to tell me what she wanted for that day. I wasn't going to play a daily guessing game. This went on for about a week or two until she finally seemed to grow tired or bored and just said I could call her her. Though she still identifies as non-binary. Fine. At least when it was going on she wanted she, he, or they. I'm sorry but I couldn't have done fox self/fox them with a straight face. So that's the pronoun story, and looking back where I think things started to go off the handle. Here's my real question. My daughter is now 18, pregnant, and seems to have lost her goddamn mind. Or I'm an asshole. You choose. This year has been a struggle. She wanted to take a break year before she goes to community college, but can't keep a job. Apparently, retail situations are too phobic against her non-binary state. My child looks/acts/dresses exactly as a young adult female BTW. When I ask how people are being phobic against her, she gets as prickly as a cactus, so I really don't know the details. She's been through 4 or 5 jobs this year, quit all of them. She won't consider call centers that aren't face-to-face because she doesn't like to talk on phones, and is apparently looking for a remote job without any luck. She's been unemployed since Thanksgiving. She quit her last job on Black Friday, in fact, and I was on the verge of laying down the law, telling her she either needs to go to school this upcoming semester full-time or get a full-time job or move out with her friends. But now she's come to me and she's 5 months pregnant. She's very angry at me, says it's my fault because I didn't put her on puberty-blocking hormones when she came to me 2 years ago. She believes I'm in fact trying to feminize her by getting her birth control. The pill. She's been throwing her prescription away. This is where I might be the asshole. I called her a little idiot. We don't use that sort of language in my house, and I never call people names, especially my own child, but at that moment I could just see red. The hormone thing is a non-issue IMO because this is the first time I ever heard of her wanting hormones. What was I supposed to do? Go back in time? As for birth control, it's also the first time I'm hearing anything about this. There are non-pill options that don't have estrogen. If that was her want, all she had to do was ask and I would have driven her to the doctor myself. Or she could have taken the car she has and done it. She has her own medical card even. Though to be fair, I don't know how she would have managed the copay without a job. I know for a fact her old high school gave out free condoms like candy because her friends were always giggling over flavored sample packs, and even blew a few of them up like balloons and left them around the house one time. She had all the birth control she could ever want and used none of it. It gets worse. We're way past the date of abortion. Again, I would have helped her if this had been her wish. We live in an abortion-protected state and can afford it. She's known she was pregnant for about 2 months and has come to think of her baby like a sibling. She expects me to raise it like it was mine. That this is my duty, in fact, because she says it is my refusal to accept her non-binary state that led to her being pregnant. So she was going to get a brother or sister and I was going to have another child. You can say my language grew, sterner to versions of get your head out of your ass, and congratulations mommy, you have some hard decisions to make, and I said I would absolutely not raise her baby for her. She also refused to say who the father was. Now that I've cooled down, I'm really hoping she has a secret boyfriend. She does have some friends who were born male, but now also don't identify that way. We didn't even get there as I lost my mind when she said she thinks of her own baby as a sibling and wants me to raise it like my own child. She's locked herself in her room loudly wailing, I feel like crap warmed over. She's been in there for 12 hours, and as she has an attached bathroom, probably won't be coming out until she gets hungry. Considering it's been half a day, I think she has snacks stored. I also don't know where to go from here. Being pregnant sucks and messes with your head, so I'd like to blame that and the fear she must be feeling, but I have the bad feeling I either raised a spoiled brat or someone with an emerging personality disorder. So I need to know from people who aren't emotionally involved, and maybe some people who are more in tune with this whole non-binary thing than I am. What do I do to help while also making her responsible for her own child? How can I help my daughter except she must do basically the most feminine thing you can do, give birth and possibly breastfeed, while being sensitive that she's non-binary? Am I just a big asshole here? Typing all this out, it feels like my daughter is lost in a crazy town. I'm still not raising her baby, but at what point do I drag a legal adult to the hospital? Edit. You might disagree with my choices or wording, but I'm reporting people who call this bait. It's not. Edit 2. It's the middle of the night and she has decided to pack some of her clothes and stay with one of her friends. One who I suspect is the baby daddy. Before she left, she told me that she already called the police and let them know that she was leaving of her own free will and was not in danger. Like I was going to report an 18-year-old adult as a runaway or something. It was insulting. I told her she needs to work out details if she wants to adopt with the father, and she was welcome back home when she had a plan in place. It was short because I heard her on the way out. I think she just meant to leave without saying anything. Thank you for your kind comments and advice, Reddit. I'm going to sleep. Commenters agreed that OP's child wasn't thinking straight. Comment 1. I hate to say this, but I sincerely hope OP's daughter chooses to give up this baby for adoption, because she's a confused hot-ass mess. I don't blame OP for not wanting to step on the crazy train and raise this baby. Comment 2. Let's be honest, if OP says yes to raising this child as her own, it will be the first of several. Daughter won't take BC, so she will continue to have unprotected sex and get pregnant. She decided a couple years ago that she's NB, expected her mother to understand that and know everything about it, and is now rewriting history to blame her mom for her now being pregnant. My head is swimming, and she's not my daughter. There will be more babies. Comment 3. You are so NTA. I feel sympathy for your kid because they sound like they are so confused, maybe have body dysphoria and are now facing a life-altering situation with no way out. They must feel so trapped. So they turn on you. It's easier for them to yell at and blame you instead of accepting responsibility. They are looking for a way out. We all keep changing and growing, and your kid is so young they seem to not know who they are yet, and now they have to face looking after a baby when they know deep down they can't even really take care of themselves. But my God, the thing they did that was really stupid was chucking BC away. That is actually wild. Your kid needs to learn the difference between gender-enforced stereotypes and actual biology. With biology, it unfortunately doesn't matter what gender you are, the biology doesn't care, it still works the same. They need to learn that and differentiate. Like I said, NTAOP, what a shit situation. I hope it gets better. I really do. Comment 4, NTA. Your child is in fact a little idiot, with behavior that would be an absolute nightmare had you not been their parent. Also, birth control isn't a form of feminization, it's a form of responsibility when you're born in a body with a uterus and want to have sex that can result in pregnancy. OP's response, I wish I had those words when she hit me with that one. I sort of sputtered for a few minutes. Comment 5, oh man, this is a can of worms within itself. I wish I had better advice, but just, I feel for you in the position you're stuck in. The only thing I can think of is, referring to breastfeeding as chest feeding, might make your NB daughter accept it more. But there's a whole other level of things you need to get through first. First and foremost, therapy, ASAP for your kid. Because she needs to get her head sorted out. Assuming you will just take this kid and raise it for her is problematic to say the least. And she's got a deadline coming obviously, so therapy ASAP. Also appointment for pregnancy checkups ASAP. Has she had any? An unmonitored pregnancy can lead to complications. You might also be able to get her a social worker to go through pregnancy checkups, birthing extra. Your kid needs a big sit-down conversation about accountability for your own actions. And about how she might feel like part of your actions lead to this. There was also many choices she could have made to prevent this, that she chose not to. And at the end of the day, it was her choices that led to this, not you. OP's response, thanks for this tip. I've written it down. The reason I mentioned she was NB because using breast instead of chest is the exact type of thing to send her into a pissy fit when she's in the wrong mood. I know this may sound like a little thing, but she's always been, dramatic. Because it's the internet and things are anonymous, I'll admit that I am absolutely dreading pregnancy and afterbirth mood swings. Especially since it will all involve very womanly things in every intimate way. On top of the sheer stress of a newborn? Yes, I'm not looking forward to it at all and am already preparing to endure the storms. Our conversation wasn't productive, it was an argument and she's still not out of her room, but I don't think she has had any prenatal care. That will change if I have anything to do with it. Thanks again. OP commented with some of her concerns, yes. My worry and regret have so many places to go and a big part of it is for the baby. This has been a bad day. Responding to a comment regarding her child's entitled attitude, oh believe you me I have been kicking myself up and down on top of everything else. I don't know how she got to this point, but she's there now. I wish I did have that time travel machine she clearly expects me to have. She also clarified her overall views on the matter. I'm on the fence. If she acted at all like she didn't have a gender, I believe that's what NB is, then I could take it more seriously. But she dresses as a woman. She puts on makeup, wears dresses during the summer, enjoys feminine things. We watch horse videos on YouTube and squeal over the new foal videos. She's never been a tomboy, even. But I was like, Okay, this isn't hurting her. I'll let her have this and express herself. Maybe it'll turn into something, maybe it won't. And after the first few weeks, she even dropped changing pronouns every day. Her mentioning being NB faded and then started up hard again when high school ended and she started working retail. I try to be understanding. Retail is hell and I'd personally only work it again if I was at my last resort, but recently it does seem to be an excuse not to work, and now she has a baby on the way. This may not be the place for it, but I'm just worried she's regressing to a more childlike state. I don't know if she's struggling with being NB or if she's using NB as an excuse to shield herself from the world. Ugh. I guess the internet won't know, but I'm just flat out worried. Update. This is an update to this post. Long story short, my 18-year-old NB daughter wanted me to raise her baby, and she told me she thinks of the baby as her sibling. We had a blowout. She locked herself in her room for most of a day and then took off with her friends. Her lover. So this happened a few days ago, but I didn't update because I needed to get my head around it. It still doesn't make sense. Daughter finally unblocked me. She and the person who got her pregnant wanted to talk to me at a public place. We chose IHOP. Although I suspected I knew who her lover was, I was disappointed to find out because they have been a part of my daughter's friend group since high school and was the only one I ever had a problem with and kicked out of my house. They are trans now, but 2 years ago the friend group was watching a movie in the living room, and every time I'd pass by, he was a he then, would lock eyes with me and make really obnoxious, loud orgasm sounds like that scene in Harry Met Sally. I told him to knock it off and grew sterner when he did it again. Then when I was in the kitchen, he somehow snuck up behind me and was miming jack-off movements with his hand. I turned around and caught him at it. He was still fully clothed, but it was startling and freaky. I kicked him out. So now I'll just call them sperm donor because that's what they are. I'm still calling my daughter and she because I still haven't been told not to by her otherwise. So get off my case on that. Anyway, the IHOP meeting was a shit show. Sperm donor sat with my daughter and went on the attack. Sperm donor's points were, I was poisoning my daughter by making her take birth control. I only helped her get the prescription and would have done everything I could if I knew she didn't want to take the pill. There are other methods. It will take years to fix my daughter after all I did. Not giving her hormones even though I had no idea that was what she wanted. She dropped out, even wanting to change her pronouns after a few weeks. Abortion is a sin and I'm a monster for suggesting it. It's past the date anyway. I am further abusing her by not taking care of the baby while she fixes herself. I guess they meant it as a temp situation, which was also new to me. So apparently even though I'm an abusive monster, a bad mother and so on, I'm even worse for not taking in their baby. At least no one suggested that I raise it like my daughter's sister anymore. That might have been my daughter's thought on it. Sperm donor did most of the talking while my daughter just sat and glared at me, nodding along. It was kind of a whirlwind. Sperm donor pounded the table a few times, and even the waiter knew not to bother us after drinks, lol. I'm surprised we weren't asked to leave. There was a lot said, mostly by the sperm donor who really seemed to be steering the ship. I asked why the sperm donor couldn't take care of the baby and the sperm donor said their parents were even worse than me. I guess my daughter and sperm donor taking care of the child they created is out of the question. I told them that I would not be raising their baby for them and that adoption is the best bet. They said that if I don't agree to raise it, they'll make sure I'll never see the baby ever. I won't raise their child for them. So that's that, I guess. I feel so many flavors of worried and angry and then worried all over again. I've been around the block and it's never a great sign when the person you're with makes an enemy of your family. That's what sperm donor has done by painting me as an abuser and failed mother who also won't take in their baby. Sounds like sperm donors have cut themselves off from their own family too. So I'm worried my daughter is in a very controlling relationship with someone who convinced her to stop birth control because they think hormones are too feminizing somehow and that she needs to be fixed. But they still want me to raise their baby. I'm angry that my daughter can just hear this crap and nod along like, yeah, that makes total sense. She is not stupid. I think she's love blinded. I'm sad and worried for the baby. A couple commenters suggested I wanted nothing to do with the baby because I wouldn't agree to raise it as my own. No, in a perfect world, I would want a normal grandmotherly relationship. Or at least know that the child is safe and has been adopted into a loving family. I don't care what my daughter does with her gender, or her body as long as she doesn't hurt herself. I want her to be in a happy relationship with someone who values her for who she is. Sperm donor kept using the word fix, which I see as another terrible sign. It's bad all around. My house is empty. It feels like my adult daughter has run off to join up with some weird church cult thing who tells her that up is down. That not using birth control and not getting an abortion and then expecting others to take care of the child is all a-okay. Oh, and that she's a problem and needs to be fixed. I texted her and said I would be there for her, but sperm donors was still not welcome in the house. I think I'm blocked again. She's a legal adult. I'm not sure what else I can do at this point. In my low points, part of me thinks maybe I should agree to take the baby and then immediately make sure it's adopted into a loving home. But I get the feeling that sperm donors won't make that easy, and right now my daughter does what he says. Also, I'm not sure if that plan is even possible. It sounds like Hollywood. I have an appointment to speak with a counselor, but the soonest I could get is April. Some of my friends think I should take the baby in either to get them away from the parents or because they think it's my duty, or both. The only silver lining in this was that they both seem sober. I don't think there's drugs involved. Am I reading this wrong? Am I the asshole here? Commenters agreed that sperm donors' comments made no sense, and that OP's child was probably stuck in an abusive relationship. Comment 1. For your safety, I would change the locks and put up a camera. Sperm donor seems unhinged. I'm a firm believer in better safe than sorry. Comment 2. This baby will be used as a pawn in his never-ending psychodrama. If they do not and cannot raise their baby, the best solution is adoption. Otherwise, the father will make your life a living hell. OP's response. I couldn't figure out a polite way of saying this, but yes. That is my suspicion if I take in their baby. Sperm donor implied it would be temporary while earlier my daughter said it would be permanent. I think sperm donors will refuse to sign over paperwork when the time comes or try to leverage it in some way. Comment 3. NTA. Also, it sounds like your daughter is in an abusive relationship with this person. Sorry your daughter has been brainwashed by this crazy person. I would definitely contact this sperm donor's family and if they seem sane, warn them about how crazy both of them spoke to you. OP's response. That is my fear and not a bad idea to contact sperm donor's parents. This has all happened so far. I feel like I'm in shock and I'm very worried. Comment 4. Pretty wild that a trans person is saying abortion is a sin. None of this is anything like what you're going to hear from any healthy LGBT community, who are quite careful to make sure not to support people in delusional or antisocial behavior. Definitely get therapy. Sounds like your kid has some serious mental health problems if they're being influenced by whatever wackos put these ideas into their head. You're going to need support in coping with this madness. NTA by a country mile. You are in no way abusing your kid by refusing to take responsibility for their bad choices. OP's response. Thank you, and yes, I don't want to minimize my daughter's role in it, but the hard anti-abortion thing surprised me too. A lot of what they said contradicted itself. It felt like I was sitting across from two people who were in their own wacko bubble. I know it's not a LGBT thing. I wish someone from their community would knock some sense into them, if it's even possible at this point. OP left an update in a comment. I logged in and received a large amount of requests for an update. Unfortunately, I do not have one. I have not seen or heard from my daughter since the last meeting, and I believe she has changed her phone number. Our community isn't a large one and I have heard through the grapevine she is staying with the sperm donor in one of the homeless camps out in the woods. As this is a haven for drugs and sex trafficking, this is a further concern. From what I've heard, she is pregnant. Myself and a few friends and family members have driven through the camp area a few times on the lookout for her, but it's very large and there aren't exactly marked roads. Also recently other people have been shot at while walking their dogs around there, or riding ATVs, so every time we go it's a risk. So that's it. I'm stuck hoping she's safe and under some kind of shelter. There are a lot of plywood houses and broken down RVs out there, and waiting to hear news when she has the baby. Yes, CPS and the local police are aware of my concerns. I'm worried the child will be born addicted to drugs because I don't know anyone who doesn't live out there who isn't a meth head. Thanks for your concern all. I'm unsure what I'll do when the baby is born. I might have to take in the baby after all just to make sure it doesn't live in that camp, and it may make me an asshole. But I am not looking forward to the hard work and drama that will come with it. New update. I posted another update in the comments a while back. It's on my account. Basically my pregnant daughter shut me out of her life completely and rumor had it she was living in a homeless camp with her weirdo lover out in the woods. It's a huge place and my friends and I searched a few times but weren't able to find her. It's also dangerous because there aren't laws out there and the homeless shoot at ATV riders and hikers and send dogs after people who come too close to what they consider their territory. To be clear, I don't think my daughter was part of that group. The camp is huge and full of meth addicts, sex traffickers, and drug labs. Anyway, the full story is in my account if you care. I did contact sperm donor's parents and they have all but disowned him after very much the same disturbing behavior I outlined earlier, only geared toward their younger siblings. So that sucks. Back to the new news. All this shook out a couple weeks ago, but I hesitated to post because of my own emotions and the fact I know Reddit will be all over my ass for the deep anger, shame, and disappointment I have for my daughter. I came home from grocery shopping to find a strange pregnant woman at my door. That woman used to be my daughter, but had changed so much she was like a stranger. She chatters constantly so you can't get a word in, she has several small face tattoos and, forgive me for saying this, looks like she has aged 20 years. She had been living rough. She was angry I locked her out. I changed the locks after she left, and basically expected to move back into her old room with no problem, like it was just another day from back in the winter when she lived here. Of course I wasn't going to turn her away, so I guess in a way she was right. She was living in the homeless camp with the sperm donor, and I insisted she take a shower because it looked like she hadn't since leaving. She also stank bad. She had no shame about blocking my number or what she put me through by disappearing. All she wanted to talk about was the grand fate that she and sperm donor are building. That they're building a community of new people, and she went on and on and on without mentioning the baby once. I don't know how anyone can stand them, but sperm donor has multiple partners and my daughter is one of them and is perfectly happy being his broodmare. The broodmare is my verbiage. Hers is much more royal. Frankly, based on what she overshared, sperm donor seems like a complete sex fiend. Finally I broke in and asked and she said she had been to the doctor regularly. That was a lie, found out later. And all is well with the baby. At this point I knew she had to be on drugs. If she was awake, she was talking, and none of what she said had an end or a point. Also, a lot was from Crazy Town. What I got from her was that, again, she and several other ladies, and men, somehow, were to carry the next generation of new people. Yes, the men. Yes, biological men. Sperm donor was sort of the middle of the wheel with the spokes, was how she described it. I've met him before and I'm surprised he was able to get one girlfriend, much less whatever grouping is going on now. Anyway, sometimes she said she wanted to keep the baby, though she wouldn't tell me a plan to take care of and house it. I think she expected to stay with me, and sometimes she wanted to adopt it out, but not for the good of the baby but to spread the new people. This part is going to upset the internet, but the new people are apparently without gender expectations and that was why she didn't know the baby's gender yet. Oh yeah, and also some of the wheel, her group, were empathic and they could communicate their feelings through the other world. As a houseguest, she was the absolute worst. It was like she had gone feral out in the camp and cleaned up after herself to the point where she mostly did not even flush the toilet after using it. She ate everything, which was to be expected, but never cleaned up after herself and kept asking is too mild of a word, she demanded, for me to take her out to restaurants. I did it a couple of times because I missed her and was trying to make a connection, but then once afterward took her to the store to get baby supplies, and she was weirdly detached. Sort of picked up the first thing she saw on the shelf and all the while it was yak about her true family of new people and their grand fate. Anyway, I finally told her that she expected the baby in mid-July, which put her outside the time frame she originally gave me. I had it on my calendar. I was obsessed with the possible due date because I didn't know if she would find a baby on my doorstep or what. And yes, she was under the care of a doctor. Both lies. Getting her to focus on one subject was impossible. She would only stop talking long enough to take a breath and only listen long enough to you to stop for your own before she'd launch into a new thing, usually around sperm donor, who she loved but was nowhere in sight and was chilling back at the camp with the rest of his breeding stock, or whatever. Basically I was waiting for her to come down off whatever high she was on, when she went into full-blown labor. It was a complete shit show. She was having pains but her water hadn't broken yet. At the hospital it came out that she had not been to the doctor once for the baby. There are programs in our state that cover pregnancies. So that put her at high risk, so she was admitted immediately. That's when the switch flipped and she became hateful towards nurses and doctors. She said the worst things and they were absolute saints in return. She also had delusions of grandeur and told them she was their queen and accused them of trying to punish her. It was so wild, I can't even describe the monster she became. So hateful. Racist, vicious, and the worst things you can say to people, she said them. She wasn't in hard labor yet, so it wasn't entirely the pain. I pulled one nurse aside and told her where she had been living and that I suspected drugs, though I hadn't caught her using yet. They were so professional and gave her painkillers that helped her mood. Not gonna lie, they doped her up because she was acting wild. Imagine my surprise when her blood work came out clean. I wasn't there for the birth because she didn't want me in the room with her, and heaven help me, I was a little relieved because I was ashamed of her behavior. but I did talk to a social worker on staff to let them know everything I did. The lady was very nice but couldn't speculate officially on my daughter's mental state. I said she had to be bipolar or manic or something because her behavior was not normal, but she asked if she had threatened to kill herself or harm the baby and she hadn't. They can't step in until there's a threat. Miraculously, the child was born at a good weight and healthy, and not addicted. I don't want to give too much info on them because the internet is forever and one day they may search for their own past. My daughter lucked out big time and had a normal delivery as things went. She didn't give sperm donor's name out as the father, though I did to the social worker. They can't put the birth certificate on my word. She got up and left her baby that evening without officially checking out. Without saying goodbye to me or her newborn. Because the hospital is a safe surrender point, she won't be charged for abandonment. CPS asked if I wanted to take the child and though it tore me up, I said no. There are a lot of reasons for why. A big one is I don't want to be held hostage to my daughter's whims, and especially sperm donor. I don't want to be on the hook for more children who are likely to come. Also look at my daughter. I did my best and she still turned out this way. Maybe I shouldn't try again. I know getting a new family is almost the best thing that could have happened for the baby even with problems with the foster system. It has to be better than the camp. But I feel like dog shit about it even now. I also suspect they'll have a sibling soon as my daughter can arrange it. I know my daughter is not well. I know she's in a cult and probably in danger and also probably an abuser herself, based on the stories she casually dropped about other members. She is also a selfish liar and it is luck or the grace of God or what have you that her baby was born healthy. She is rolling the dice on her life and the life of her future children. She's sick and under a sex fiend's control and now thinks she has magic thought powers, but she has some responsibility in this too. All the rest of the transgender stuff with her lover, and if she is NB or not from the past doesn't matter. She's an adult and is making some bad choices. It's hard for me to type out, but the way she treated the hospital staff was so cruel. Seriously, I had to use a thesaurus to describe it because I can't even fully describe how bad it was. It showed me that whatever else, she thinks other people are below her. It's more than the mania. I'm just there to serve her, whenever she sees fit. She knew she would be giving birth soon, so she came home and expected me to take care of her. I did, of course, because she was 9 months pregnant. And the second she didn't have any more need for me, or the baby she had just given birth to, it was easy to take off again. I listened to her for days and she expressed no feelings of hope for the baby other than a vehicle to spread their movement. No worry about their future life, and no more comments on me raising them as a sibling. She made the choice to leave and go back to sperm donor's harem or wheel or whatever. Sick or not, I'm ashamed to have raised someone with these kinds of values. Mentally ill people aren't bad people, but she has gone beyond merely bad choices. I haven't totally written her off and she may come back to sanity, but since all indications are that I'm blocked again, I'm going to think long and hard about boundaries and possibly moving. I'm worried about one day finding a bunch of curtly weirdos on my porch. So that's it, I don't know what to do. It's not like I have the resources to pay someone to deprogram my daughter, and that sounds very Hollywood. I need a realistic goal. It's more than just a cult. She needs a checkup from the neck up and I don't have the legal standing to do anything. At least the baby is safe. That's the one bright spot. Thoughts are welcome and, forgive me, any realistic suggestions, or just tell me if I'm way off base and I'm the asshole here. This has been a hell of a year and such a spiral. A year ago I had a somewhat of a slacker teenager under my roof. Now all of this. To ensure my parents were on time, I tricked them with an earlier start time on the invitation. Revealing the truth later. Embarrassed my mother. My M33 parents are late for everything. Like everything. Both my sisters and myself have been disappointed so many times. Graduation ceremonies, birthday parties, even my father's retirement dinner. It is completely my mother's fault. She is a wonderful mother and I love her dearly, she just does not understand the concept of punctuality. I have seen her talking to her sister on the phone and reminded her she needed to be at my baby sister's dance recital. She waved me off and arrived after my sister had danced. We are all used to it. My dad is just done trying to get her to be on time for anything. My now wife, F28, told me in no uncertain terms that if my mother was late for our wedding she would do terrible things to me. She was only half joking. But she was a witness to my mom and dad arriving halfway through my cousin's quinceañera. So here's what I did. It is completely on me. My wife was not involved. If there is a dick move it was completely mine. When we were getting samples for the wedding I talked to the printer and had one special invitation printed with the time on it stated as being 1 hour earlier than the actual start time of the ceremony. My mother was beside herself apparently when they left the house and thought they were going to miss the wedding since she was a part of it with her and my MIL lighting the candles we would use to light the unity candle and stuff. When she arrived and noticed other people were also just arriving and parking, she was so relieved that we were starting late that she just went with it. The ceremony went off beautifully. And so did the wedding pictures and the reception. The problem came last Sunday. My parents came over for a big family dinner and we didn't bother starting the grill until they showed up. She asked why everyone wasn't eating and we just said we knew we would be waiting for them since they are always late. She said that she was not always late and had been on time for my wedding. She hadn't been. They arrived 45 minutes after the time on their invitation. My idiot cousin John, real name because it's common and he deserves people to know he is adult, snorted at her statement. A few other people giggled or smiled at this and she picked up and asked what was so funny. I came clean and told her about the special invitation. She is pissed at me for not trusting her and making her look foolish in front of everyone. If my cousin had just controlled himself, she never would have known. Edit. Part of the reason she is mad is because she had her invitation framed. To be honest, I was already planning a heist with my sisters to replace it with the real one in case she ever noticed the discrepancy between hers and the one we have framed in our home. Edit number 2. Yeah, we are Latinos. And no, I do not in any way consider it racist. How many of you guessed that? I have been to Spain and it's an issue there too. And the Philippines, basically anywhere those guys were in charge. Edit 3. Stop defending John. He and I have spent 30 years messing with each other. I have an AITA story that ends with me getting an offensive tattoo, $5,000 for removal, and him getting a body cavity search at the Mexican border. I would post it, but it happened like 10 years ago. Verdict: not the asshole AITA for causing my cousin to have a body cavity search at the Mexican border, September 1st, 2022. Fine, you win. Here is the relevant part of the story. I grew up with my older cousin John. We constantly fight like in a cartoon. I also know I can trust him with my life. And he knows I will always have his back. We do, however, try and fuck each other over as much as possible. Because it's funny. So he and I went on vacation to Mexico. Things happened. I got a tattoo. Different story. Anyways, since we have relatives all over, I can always find anything I need. In this particular case, what I needed was some of the substance that cops use to train drug-sniffing dogs. It is not an illegal or controlled substance in Mexico. But the dogs will hit on you if they smell it. So I have to stay in Mexico a few extra days to deal with some of the situations he created. I was kind enough to take him to the border in TJ so our other cousin could pick him up on the American side. I was just hoping he would get the shot scared out of him when the drug dogs hit on his luggage. We learned from a young age never to carry anything illegal over international borders because we are almost always selected for screening. I knew for a fact he was clean. Just hungover. Anyways, it turns out that when a kid born in a certain South American country, carrying a Canadian passport, and only a backpack crosses the border and the drug dogs indicate he should be searched, he gets very thoroughly searched. And when they don't find anything, well, let's just look at the title of this post. He thinks I went too far. Edit: yes. I'm fully aware it was overkill. Can I defend my actions? Not really. Taken as a totality of our lives though, I still probably owe him for the stuff he has done to me. Like a lot. For the record, I did apologize. Update July 22, 2024, 2 years later. What happened? My parents have been embarrassed for 2 years now because of how I tricked them into being on time for my wedding. Pretty much every time I see them they say I was a dick not to trust them. Our church is very busy and full of young people. So lots of weddings. To the point where there are 3 weddings every Saturday all summer long. 1 at 10, 1 at noon, and 1 at 3. Sometimes, but not often, there is also an evening wedding. My little sister just got married. She snagged the noon slot. My mom got super involved in planning the wedding to prove that I'm just an immature asshole. She said that she would be on time and not miss anything. Side note. I personally hate when people clink glasses to get the bride and groom to kiss. At our wedding people had to sing a song. My cousin John has no shame and sang like 10 times. I think people were bribing him with alcohol. I set up a betting pool for kisses depending on how late my parents were. It cost $10 and if you guessed within 5 minutes you got a free pass to make my sister and her husband kiss. Almost everyone bet on time, because of the shitstravaganza at my wedding. The correct answer was 25 minutes. Only me, my dick cousin John, and his sister Yvonne got free passes for the kissing. And I bet $100. I was confident. We raised almost $1,500 for the honeymoon with my stupid idea. And I got to interrupt my sister's eating with my 10 passes. Win-win. Except for my mom, who thinks I did it to embarrass her. She literally helped plan the wedding and was still late. By over half an hour. We were literally cleaning up the decorations in my sister's colors while the next wedding was decorated after us. So that's that. My mom will never change. But I have harnessed her inability to give a shit about punctuality for the good of humanity. See you whenever my littlest sister gets married. Later. Am I the asshole for deciding to divorce after discovering that my wife had a tattoo of another man's name while I was away? My wife of 4 years got a tattoo recently with her best friend who has a very aggressive type of bone cancer. She didn't discuss it with me at all. I just did it while I was on a training mission. Came home Monday morning to her with his name tatted on her neck with a Pokemon. I have not returned home since I saw it. I have been sleeping in the barracks. I am honestly thinking about just filing for divorce. Am I wrong? Edit. I have heard from a few of my neighbors that she basically moved him in for the 6 weeks I was away on a training mission. And left a few days before I returned. She is refusing to even discuss it. All she keeps saying is it has nothing to do with me and her. Update 1, she was served divorce papers yesterday at our previous home together. She thought it would be a good idea to involve both our families without giving them a reason or context. I filed for divorce after I got home from my last training mission. So as the parents called, I told them about the tattoo and her moving him in while I was gone. And let them deal with her. Relevant comments. OP added in the comments. Spoke with my CO about it. He said I should just let Jag handle the paperwork. And he will have me in a new duty station by Monday. He said a man can't live with that level of disrespect, and I agree with him. Comment 1, what did you say to her when you first saw it? And how did she react to you? OP, I asked her what she did. And she said I got a Pokemon tattoo and showed me. I saw his name on her neck, and I just went quiet and picked up my bags and walked back on base. Went and saw my CO and had a drink with him. Comment 2, if my partner puts any other name on his body than my kids, his family or me, it's a problem. They could have done a tattoo without a name and on a place that isn't so out of the open. The tattoo on itself isn't an issue, but the name and place is. OP, exactly. It hurts that she turned me down last year about getting matching tattoos to just get one with her Pokemon Go buddy. But it's not the tattoo that is the complete disrespect and disregard that it's a constant symbol of. Update 2, got all my ducks in a row, as they say. Sat down and spoke with my future ex-wife. She honestly expects me to just step aside and let her play house with her friend. Pause our marriage, wait till they are done, then continue our life together like nothing happened. I can't live with her plan, so I'm getting divorced. Wasted nearly 6 years on her already, not wasting any more of my life on her. Will be in my new duty station by the end of June. A fresh start, I hope, and put all this behind me. Relevant comments. How has his wife tried to reconcile? She has been endlessly trying to just communicate with me. After she failed to contact me personally, she went to our parents and siblings, and when that failed, she started contacting friends and people in my unit, spouses of people in my unit. She is absolutely relentless, and it's always the same bullshit about how this is just temporary because he is not long for this earth. And I would do the same thing for a terminally sick friend. What does her family say about everything? No, they are not at all pleased. At first, her parents came at me because all she told them was I left her out of the blue after returning from a training mission. I told the truth about how she got a neck tattoo with her friend's name and had him living in our house while I was on my training mission. Update 3. This morning, my commanding officer pulled me from a training flight to inform me of my wife's death and got me on a flight back to North Carolina. Should arrive at my parents' house in about 8 hours. A month ago, I filed for divorce and changed duty stations and cut her completely out of my life. I didn't want to hear how this thing with her friend James was temporary and how our marriage would go back to normal after he passed. I am not suicidal or anything like that, but I am profoundly saddened. I keep thinking how 6 months ago we were happy and in love. And now she took her own life when I just didn't accept what she was doing for a friend who was dying from cancer. I am riddled with self-doubt and blaming myself for her actions. Thinking about everything and our parents having been friends for decades, she is now dead in the water, another victim of her delusion. I know these were all her choices but still feel guilty for her death. I don't know if hell is real or not, but I hope James ends up there for what he has caused. Update 4. Had a meeting with the funeral home today. She already set most everything up and paid for it a little over a week ago. We are having a memorial service at my in-laws' house on Wednesday. Her ashes will need to be picked up in a few days. I have a grief counseling session on Friday morning. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I'm sorry for your loss. Did she ever admit to cheating? I might have missed it. OP. A week or so ago my mother called me and confirmed she was almost 3 months pregnant. So that confirmed she was sleeping with him when I was away for 6 weeks. Comment 2. Wait a sec. She was taking care of a friend with cancer and you lost your shit over it, causing a divorce, and that plunged her probably into a depression and she took her life. Sounds like you were the problem here, not so much her. OP. Not exactly. She hit the pause button on our marriage so she could play house with him while I was on a training mission in California. Without informing me. Was pregnant with his child when I came back and wasn't going to tell me. If it wasn't for the stupid tattoo she got with his name, I might have fallen for it. And slept with her, and she would have had me raise his child as my own. Comment 3. Oh, what a jerk. I'm so sorry. Now I think your wife committed suicide to join him in the other life. Probably both went to hell for their selfishness. OP. I'm not sure if he has passed or not. Pretty much left and crawled under a rock for the last few weeks. Comment 4. I was wondering if James was still alive. Did you say how your wife? How do I ask without sounding rude? Killed herself. OP. Found out she wrote 10 letters to different people, including me. Then she emptied the medicine cabinet while her family was out. They came home, and she was in her bed and had passed away. Comment 5. What was the nature of her relationship with him? Was she giving him palliative care or having an affair with him? OP. He was still active as in up and around hell as of last week. He was still working at the card shop, I was told. So we'll say an affair. Meth-addicted sister stole my identity and opened 4 credit cards in my name. What are my options for getting my credit score back up? Like the title says, my sister, who is addicted to meth, opened several credit cards in my name and maxed them all out quickly. They were mainly used at grocery stores and Target Walmart. I discovered this when I was served a court summons last week at my apartment. Upon checking my credit report, because I suspected a mistake, I found several unrecognized accounts and a collection account. The total debt was just over $15,000, all accrued around August to September of last year. The accounts were registered at my sister's address, which is an attached apartment at my parents' house. I immediately informed my parents about the situation, and they promised to talk to my sister. A few days later, they mentioned they were considering rehab for her as she had confessed to her meth addiction. A friend in law school advised me that involving the police was the only way to save my credit unless I wanted it ruined for years. When I relayed this to my mom, she asked me to delay involving the police and suggested a family discussion instead. Yesterday, I visited my parents' house and talked with them and my sister. She apologized for opening the accounts and admitted her addiction. She revealed she obtained my social security number from an old tax form and used the credit cards to buy gift cards and household items to trade for meth. She mentioned she was using less and considering rehab. When I shared my friend's advice, my mom urged me not to involve the police. She proposed that I cover the debt over time and that my sister could repay me when she was able, implying an uncertain future about the repayment. Knowing how drug addictions typically go, I am skeptical about the when turning into a never. While I want my sister to overcome her addiction, my credit score, now in the high 400s, is a barrier to buying a house when my lease expires next year. I explained the dire impact of the situation on my financial goals to my parents. They understood, but their solution to pay off the debt didn't address the various negative marks on my credit, like the 90-day late notices, closed accounts, collection actions, and the court summons. They asked me to consider their offer to not involve the police, emphasizing her need for rehab over jail. This morning, my dad reiterated their understanding of my frustration but pleaded for a second chance for my sister. They even proposed buying a house for me, which I would pay back, contingent on not reporting my sister's actions. I am torn. While I agree she needs more help than punishment, her actions involved multiple crimes using my identity. The potential offer from my parents for a 0% interest rate home loan is tied to accepting the financial loss myself. What should I do? I wish to recover my credit score, but I must also consider the human element involved. Update. A few days after my original post, I decided to file a police report, notifying my parents beforehand. Initially, not much happened, but filing the report helped clear my credit report, boosting my credit score by about 270 points, clearing all negative marks. I briefly spoke with an investigator, who was informed that I hadn't lost any money and my credit was restored. He advised continued vigilance on my credit. Shortly after, my mother angrily called me, upset that my sister was going to jail, accusing me of being heartless for reporting her while she was trying to get help. Despite talking about rehab, my sister never took actual steps towards it. She confessed everything to the investigator and was arrested at my parents' home, spending just one night in jail before being released with a court mandate for supervision, restitution, and mandatory rehab. Probably the best outcome under the circumstances. My parents are likely to cover the restitution, but my mom lashed out at me, leading to my exclusion from our family's July 4th celebration, claiming it would be hard for my sister to see me. As I plan to buy a house this fall, I am now ensuring that no new issues appear on my credit report. Given the circumstances, I'm considering moving far from my family. After discovering my brother's wedding was fake and being excluded, our once close bond is shattered, leaving me heartbroken. Me, 30F, and my brother, 31M, have always been as close as twins. Our closeness is a foundation in our family. One of the true consistent relationships, obviously not in a weird way. When we fight, which is never or small fights, the whole family feels it and tries to fix it because of how unnatural it feels for everyone. He gave me away at my wedding. I named a child after him. We have matching tattoos. We talk on the phone almost every day. He started planning his wedding. He asked me to be a groomsman, while his friend, 35-ish F, would be his best man. Everyone thought this was odd because of his role at my wedding, and none of us really know/have met his friend. I expressed how it hurt my feelings and was met with, "My wedding isn't about you, okay? Fine, I'll do what you ask." During the planning he called me every day. We sent ideas. I helped with making stuff. I didn't mind. I decided early on to not focus on titles but just to make this day as amazing as possible for my brother. He asked me to be a flower fairy, because this was a gay child-free wedding. I agreed. During the process of shoe picking, him and the best man would shoot down all of my ideas. She would send very basic heels that were around $100. Heck no. I told her my budget was $45 for shoes, especially for plain gold heels. The wedding party all had a very mean girl mentality. I felt it from day one. There was the wedding party, and then me. I chalk this up to not really knowing them well and proximity. All of them live in a different state than me. They even went as far as saying the shoes I like were too slutty. They were the type of small heels that place up around your calf or around your ankle. After this I begged to come as a guest. So I could wear what I want and not feel this weird mean girl mod mentality from the rest of the wedding group. My brother says, "No way, I can't get married without you being by my side." I get to the state the wedding will be, and the first day I'm there I find out the best man had the bachelor party the night before I got there. Everyone from the wedding party was included aside from me. I let it go and focus on the wedding and doing my part. So, I slap on some wings, dance my way down the aisle and give my very first wedding speech. All goes well. The wedding was awesome until the drag show. Yes, they had a drag show at their wedding. During the show one of the queens comes on and basically announces that this was all fake because my brother and his partner had gotten married 1 year prior. I turned to the rest of the wedding party and asked, did they know? They did. They were at the real wedding. Everyone but me. I'm sitting there trying to process, and my mom, who gave them $3,000 for the wedding because they needed it, storms up to ask if I knew. I told her no, and she immediately switched to being supportive to me because of how bad the situation was. It's not about them already being married. They can do what they want. I myself spent over $4,000 on this wedding. Because I was coming from out of state I had to get a plane ticket. I paid for a week at an Airbnb. One night most of the wedding party stayed at the house I rented because they didn't have anywhere else to stay, and did not even offer to pay for any of it. The dress for the wedding. The fairy wings I handmade. All of it. I spent too much time and money on this wedding. But then I start to remember all of the lies. They got married. And 3 days after my brother was at my house while I gave birth to my last child because I always wanted him to be a part of my huge moments. He held my newborn, knowing he had just gotten married, and said nothing. They gaslight me saying I was crazy feeling left out. Him saying he can't get married without me. Lying to my face every single day for a year. Just, all of it. After realizing all of this I tried to leave without making any sense. His husband mockingly asked me if I was mad. I said I'd talk to them another day and they should enjoy their night. I was able to leave without anyone else at the wedding knowing I was upset. Before I could leave, the happy couple pulls me into a room. My brother is crying saying he didn't do this to hurt me. I keep it together. Say enjoy your night and we will talk another day. His husband says, oh, so there is something to talk about then. I repeat, we can talk another day. They ask me to brunch. I say I'll see if I'm up, ready for it when they go. The next morning I realize the whole wedding party and some guests are going to lunch. I choose not to go because I am not going to put myself in a situation where I am ganged up on. Again over my feelings about the wedding and wedding party. After that I left the wedding chat on Snap, which they were notified of, At this point it's the next morning and his husband starts blowing me and my friend, who was with me, up. We ignore and go about our day. I have not looked at or spoken to my brother since. Aside from short responses to get me to the airport the day I left. When I left I asked them to crop me out of the wedding photos as I didn't want to be associated with a fake wedding and I didn't want a reminder of how embarrassing it was and how stupid I looked. I told them I didn't want to speak to them again. My brother says nothing and his husband says you're a narcissist and I feel bad for the people who have to deal with you. Pretty sure narcissistic more aligns with tricking 100 people into coming to a wedding, some of the wedding that was paid for by other people, just to tell everyone haha this was just a giant party for us. Joke's on you is probably more narcissistic than me reacting to the time, money, energy spent to attend a fake wedding. But, alright, lol, I just don't know where to go from here. I have them both blocked. There is a line in our family. My brother has not tried to fix it. He has the chance to show me what I meant to him. He did. And now I have to believe him. I'm going to try to update in sections. 1. I guess to answer if he is in an abusive relationship that really is up to each person to decide. I will not, and won't label him as abusive because I'm not in that relationship with them. My mentioning of the drag queens was because they are a part of the story. Hello, it was one of the queens that made the announcement. I'm not sure why some of you are taking that as me being anything phobic. Mentioning that somebody is gay, or that drag queens attended a wedding is a part of a story and it's factual. It's not anything phobic. Our family, as well as the new husband's family, have always been nothing but supportive and accepting. My mom has 2 kids who are very hurt. She could never hate my brother, but she definitely does not like the decisions that he has been making. She is doing her best to support her 2 children. Gay wedding. No kids allowed? 2 separate statements, lol. They definitely did not ban gay children from their wedding. LOL. I mentioned both of these things to explain why I was a flower fairy. No kids, flower girl. Fairy to go along with the gay dragon theme. Hello people. I proudly slap those wings on and dance my way down the aisle. That is definitely not anything phobic, lol. For those of you who are saying anything along those lines, you are definitely reaching and projecting. Using narcissistic when it actually does not apply to the person, in my opinion, is trying to weaponize more info in the comments top questions. For some reason, I cannot edit my post to add this, so hopefully most of you will see it. Me and my new husband, as far as I know, did not have any hard feelings going into the wedding. There was a time when they were dating that I expressed I didn't like the fact that my brother was working 2 jobs for a new husband to try to become a music producer. I watched my brother kill himself for years to try to support both of them while he sat around smoking weed in his studio, and ever since then new husband decided that I hate him, even though we have since squashed all of those issues when he got a job and started contributing. Even when we did not get along, I always made it very clear, if my brother loves you and I love you too. Both families have been very supportive. There's no homophobia or anything like that on either side. Is my brother in an abusive relationship? I don't know, I guess that's what each individual person would consider abusive. I don't want to label my brother's partner unfairly as abusive when I'm not in a relationship myself and my brother has never expressed feeling abused. I think if you consider this behavior manipulative and abusive, then that's up to your own discretion. However, I am not going to give anyone that label. I didn't decide this was a fake wedding. They did when they decided to announce in the middle of the ceremony that they were already married. They made it a fake wedding when they announced that it was fake. LOL. Hello. Russian bots. Pushing propaganda. Okay people, I only mentioned the fact that there was a drag show at the wedding because that is a very uncommon thing. I found out that my brother had been married for a year and had been lying to my face via drag queen announcements. That is just stating the facts. That has absolutely nothing to do with the drag community, or how myself, or anybody else should feel about them. They were paid to do a job and they showed up and did what they were paid to do. I have no ill will towards anybody in any type of community. Those of you who are saying to me, mentioning them comes off as judgmental. For those of you who think it's weird that I did not mention that he was gay. Why is that weird? And why is that relevant to the story? LOL. The people who had their panties in a wad probably have more of an issue with the community than I do. Stop making this post about anything other than what it is about. At the end of the day, I am mourning the loss of my brother. I am mourning the relationship that I thought him and I had. And to be honest, based off of my perspective of our closeness, I am honestly questioning my own sanity. Do you generally spend hours talking to somebody, getting matching tattoos, planning a wedding, being at holidays and childbirth with somebody that you're not close with? At least on my end I did not make up how close I was with my brother if it was not reciprocated, and he is a very good actor. And honestly, me questioning our closeness has been the most hurtful part about this entire experience. It's made me question if I'm crazy or not. Gay wedding, child-free, two separate statements. It was not a wedding where they did not invite gay kids, lol. For anyone who reads it like that, you're extra weird. My brother is obviously gay and got married to a man. Therefore, it is a gay wedding. Children were not allowed to attend the wedding there for a child-free. Two separate things, people. Both are okay. And I also want to say that I would never have slapped fairy wings on my back and danced down the aisle if I was not 100% supportive of them. Please stop trying to make this an issue other than two siblings having a falling out. Another comment. Okay, ow. I feel like you are very much twisting the story, lol. I did not make sure everyone knew I was leaving the wedding. I actually left very discreetly at almost midnight when the wedding was ending at 1 a.m. I did not make my brother cry. His husband kept trying to force a conversation that I asked respectfully multiple times to not have the night of the wedding so that way it would not ruin their day. I showed up in every single thing my brother asked of me. I took the bullying, and it kept my mouth shut for most of it after I was accused of trying to make the wedding about me. From that point on, I went out of my way to do everything I could to make his day as special as I could for him. Comment about her husband. Brother tried to contact my husband to ask how to pay back what I spent to come to the wedding. My husband said that he was not going to get involved. Brother tried to convince my husband that I was overreacting. My husband told brother that is absolutely not true and I have every right to be upset, and what he did was bonkers. My husband very much has been supportive but also is very sad to see me and my brother fighting like this. Update 1, I'm going to do my best to put as much information as I can, but it ends up really long and Reddit will not let me post. So I'm going to try to answer all of the questions and I'm going to paraphrase a lot. The update is, there is no update. Things are the same, they are still blocked. One suggestion was that I should write him a letter, which I actually did the day after this happened, and I left it in his room. I laid out all of my feelings and described them in detail. How hurt I was. We had a 2-hour drive where he said absolutely nothing even after reading my letter. I did end up losing all of my manners when I landed, and my husband informed me that he sent him a message basically saying that I was overreacting. I said a lot of things that I was not very proud of. At the end of the day, I stand by my truth, and I stand by my perspective of what happened. Please stop trying to make this a phobia issue. Both families have been nothing but supportive. They represent themselves, not an entire group of people. Stop being so simple-minded. The mention of drag queens was only there because one of the queens announced that they had gotten married a year ago. Plus, how many times do you see a drag show at a wedding? If you read some imaginary undertone, that is definitely a you issue. Moving on. New husband, in my opinion, is not somebody that I would label as abusive. However, abuse is subjective. I think this more falls down to him being very emotionally immature. I am not a yes man, I was for the wedding. That's an appropriate time to be a yes man. Outside of that, new husband has always been intimidated by my opinion. I think he knows I can see through his BS. Weak men hate strong women. That's a fact. And that's the case here. However, we did not have any type of beef on the wedding day. Or for years before. I made it clear that if my brother loves you and wants to spend his life with you, then I support that. My mom is trying her best to be as supportive as she can to both of her kids. She could never hate my brother, although she absolutely hates what he did. As far as I go, I don't know who I am without my brother. He was just as important to me as my children and my husband. It was always me and him. To say that I am mourning is an understatement. This whole situation has made me question a 30-year relationship. Realizing his capability to live a double life that I'm not a part of has rocked to my entire world in my entire sense of reality. I'm not okay. I'm going to spend the next year being no contact. I'm going to go to therapy and get my mind, body and soul in the best place possible, while pushing as much good karma into the world as I can. Maybe then I will be able to decide if I want to close that door fully and permanently, or if I'm at a place where I'm willing to create a new normal with him. At the end of the day, I am absolutely devastated and heartbroken. I also want to address frequently asked things. 1. Baby was no fear of being overshadowed. The date that they got married was because it was a dating anniversary for them, nothing to do with me or my pregnancy. 2. I am aware that people get married and have a large ceremony later. That's okay. It's not what they did, it's how they did it. 3. I am not a Russian bot trying to push propaganda, lol. Those comments did make me laugh though. 4. If I had the answer to why they would feel comfortable doing this to me, then I guess I wouldn't be as dumbfounded as I am. I'm not leaving out any type of detail. Honestly, it would be a lot easier if I did something so horrible to deserve this because then I wouldn't have to wonder why. I'd know. At the end of the day, I'm not okay. I don't know if there's anything he could do to fix this. I'll always wonder if he's telling me the truth or what he's hiding. After the way that his husband spoke to me, and after him allowing him to do that, I'm honestly so disgusted with both of them. I deleted the original post because I didn't want them to be attacked. Sadly, I still have a need to try to protect him. I don't know you guys. The brother-in-law appeared and made a comments in the original post. Brother-in-law here, I'll just start by saying for one, having a big wedding ceremony 1 year later was not my idea, but once we decided that we were going to do it, we consulted many times about telling people beforehand for fear of things like this happening. I've never had a great relationship with Op, but we've tried to make things work mostly for my husband, her brother, because I knew they were very close and I wasn't too fond of her due to our interactions in the past. I know how important those close relationships are and would never wish to tear that apart. Op didn't want to talk about it at all. We tried to apologize and explain that the intention was never for any humiliation or insult to anyone at all. But she wouldn't have any conversation about it, especially the night of. The next day at the Airbnb I tried to open a dialogue with Op about how she was feeling, and she only responded with snark and comments about how there's nothing to talk about. That's the small conversation where the "so there is something to talk about" statement was said by me. I eventually let it be and left the room. Everything that was said by her didn't help me or anyone understand really how she felt about it, and the little she did say seemed very self-centered and about how this was a plan to humiliate her specifically, which it most definitely was not. Reading through this now though, I do understand a bit more why she felt that way. And for that I truly am sorry. Anyway, I'm not entirely sure how these work or if there's a proper way to post this, but ask me anything. Reply. All I'm going to say is, you both are married now and you made your choice. You both are a partnership. You both collectively decided to do this and decided it was a good idea, and the consequences are, I want nothing to do with either one of you ever again. That's it. There is no reason or purpose to keep having an open dialogue about this because it's done. And you starting out your post with "you don't like me" pretty much confirmed everything that I said. I wish you and him nothing but happiness, but this conversation is over. I've heard your side of things and it still isn't good enough to justify what you both did. And I'm choosing to walk away from both of you. Another reply. He admits in the text above he knew. He literally says we didn't want to tell people because they were there and happy. He knew what he was doing. It was a huge manipulation. Lying to people to get what you want is manipulation. Omitting things from people to not give them the power to make a fair choice is also very much manipulation. They knew what they were doing. In the sentence the other people said, brother doesn't value sister the same way. That's it. That's the end of the argument. They both showed me exactly what I meant to them. The motivation behind it is not really important anymore. Maybe this was just a total oversight and a mistake, but regardless, the result was the same. And the consequence remains the same. I want nothing to do with y'all. I wish you happiness because I will always love you. If you make him happy, then I am so happy for the both of you. Truly I am. Our relationship was the sacrifice for this day and you both decided to make it. I reacted to it and was trying to sort through my feelings by posting on this podcast. I did not expect for it to go viral, so for that I'm sorry. I did try to remove the post, but it was too late. I realized that you don't like me due to past interactions. And that's fine. So what I'm about to say won't matter. My heart is completely shattered. I'm literally going through a mourning process like someone died. Because that night the relationship N and I had did die. He has always been my person. He isn't now, and I've never felt more alone. I honestly don't know if I'm going to be okay. Both of your responses just confirm everything I said and everything I felt. You have your side, I have mine. But ultimately everyone is feeling the loss of me and N. This changes everything in the family. I'm going to continue to root for both of you. Always. But I am going to do it from my side of the world. In an emergency either of you can call me and I'll be there. But outside of that, I am good with both of you. You don't like me, I'm out of your life now. You don't get to defer to Neva when it comes to me but want to orchestrate our conversation after he did what he did. You are not a safe place for me. Just like I'm sure you feel like I'm not either. You win. Go be with N. Go have a happy life. Update 2. If you're reading this, you're here because you're super invested in my family's tea. LOL. But really, I'm okay. I'm going to be okay, or maybe I won't. Either way, I am going to keep moving forward, and if you want to come along with me, you can follow me on TikTok. I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm just going to use it as a diary / coping safe space. My name on there is Tukari, 29. New update. I wish I could be writing that my brother had begged for my forgiveness. Those things somehow managed to go back to how they were. But they haven't. Nothing with my situation has changed. The only thing they truly changed was my perception of someone I thought I knew. I know a lot of people can't understand because you're not close with a sibling. But this has been like a true death for me. And sometimes my grief is so big I don't know what to do with it. He hasn't reached out, he hasn't explained. He hasn't even cared if I'm being fully honest, and what a mindfuck that has been. To go from someone being as important to you as your husband and children, to them showing you over and over how little you do, and ever did mean to them. He has doubled down on the I didn't do anything wrong and you're overreacting. Which is honestly just the biggest slap in the face. If someone can't admit they did something wrong, then they will never actually be sorry and the chances of behavior repeating itself are sky high. A lot of you pointed out our relationship might have only been this important to me, and I think you all were right. For a long time I cried every day. I cried during the times we would normally talk on the phone, or when a song reminded me of him. And sometimes I've cried for no reason at all other than just feeling like there is a hole in me now. But I find myself crying less and less. And sometimes when I think of him, my first thought that follows will be, wow, it's been days since he has even crossed my mind. And I guess that's progress, right? I'm not crying every day anymore. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't still shedding tears. Tears he doesn't deserve, but they come anyway. Because that's the thing about unconditional love. It still exists even when the other person broke your heart. It doesn't go away. But sometimes the other person can just no longer have access to the unconditional anymore. We have spoken. Briefly. Over the phone during the holidays to deal with a family emergency involving another family member. It was pretty much all business. Everyone around us kept saying, I'm so glad you guys are talking again. But we weren't talking again. We were just dealing with business. And I guess that's all the talking we will ever do again. At one point my husband chimed into our phone conversation and told him how much he misses him too, and he cried. I guess I forgot I wasn't the only one losing someone, but either way that doesn't change anything. My kids have not even noticed. He did try to send Christmas gifts to them through my mom, but only because I said something about him not acknowledging my son on his birthday. So is that all he'll ever be? Impersonal generic gifts that my kids get once a year? I told my mom to send them back and that they don't need a gift uncle. Honestly, they have enough of those on my husband's side. With that I also came to the realization that if you don't have a good respectful relationship with me, you absolutely do not get access to my children. And to be fully honest, he never really took that much interest in my kids anyway. I know he cares and loves them, but as far as a personal one-on-one relationship with them, let's just say the extent of how much he got to know them was always me telling him about them. So there really wasn't a deep pre-established relationship with any of my kids and him. And with him not being on good terms with me, or my husband, I'm not going to allow him access to my children. And I would honestly feel the same way and react to anyone this way. If someone shows you over and over again that they do not love and respect you, why would you allow them access to your kids? Especially if all they are is a gift once a year. I'm not healed. But I'm on my way. It's not better, but it's getting better. I feel I am suffering the consequences of someone else's actions. I was spiraling, but I am finding my new normal. I'll update again at the 1-year mark. I fell in love with a married man while engaged to my fiancé of 6 years. Now I regret it and am trying to reconnect with my fiancé. We have been together 6 years now, and during the 3rd year of our relationship I cheated on him with a close family friend. I had started taking him for granted and it became easy to cheat because I didn't value the relationship. He broke up with me and we were split for months, and the times I was single I realized he is a great BF. I begged for him back and he took me back, but I had to promise to never speak to the guy again. I'm happy to say I never cheated since then and haven't been tempted at all. I understand how great of a partner I have. That being said, the guy I cheated on was a close family friend, and recently I rekindled our friendship behind his back. Nothing romantic. Have you ever met someone who is a terrible partner but a great friend? That's him. I hated the fact that I let a stupid mishap ruin our friendship. My fiancé found out and was angry. I apologized and we talked, and he needed space. He sent me a text of his demands to continue the relationship and I copied and pasted it. His text. After doing some thinking, I can't trust you. Whether it was platonic or not, this is the 2nd time that I know of where I have violated my trust. The hardest part isn't this, but now I have to wonder how many times have you violated my trust or done something behind my back that I just don't know about. You claim this is it, but how can I believe you? I love you and want to work on this relationship, but it's going to require a lot from you. We are postponing our wedding indefinitely. When we first got back together, it took 10 months before I felt secure in the relationship again. I have no idea how long it will take to feel secure again. Eli, I changed the name, will be blocked on everything and you're to never speak to him again. This now includes family events. If you know he will be there, do not attend. If you didn't know and he attends, you are to ignore him. I have unrestricted access to phones, social media, emails, etc. Every password I want to know for any device you have. No hanging out with male friends alone. You are to be home by 1 if you do go out with your homegirls. There will be more, but these are my demands and they aren't up for discussion. If you aren't willing to do it, then the relationship is over. Take your time to think about it. End of text. I called him, but he said he's not arguing with me about it and won't call him back until I decide what I want to do. I feel that this is extremely harsh considering the fact I didn't cheat this time. Ever since we got back together, I never cheated on him. OP believes that the punishment is too far. I think I was wrong. But I feel that the punishment doesn't fit the crime. I made a horrible mistake years ago. Being friends with someone doesn't equal sign cheating. Even though I was wrong for going behind his back. OP is convinced to follow her BF's rules. Okay, I'll do it. I just needed to make sure he wasn't going too far, but if this is what it takes to rebuild his trust. When commenters say that OP is on her way to cheat on her BF again, she claims, "You don't think I'll follow his rules? Good thing I don't let people tell me what I can't do. I'm going to be laughing when we work through this, get married and have kids." Update 1. We had a really great conversation and he was vulnerable and said it made him feel like I didn't value him. He was crying and it really hurt me to see the pain I caused him. He told me that please let's not go forward with this unless I can promise that I won't go behind his back again because he can't go through this pain again. I told him that I promise I will never hurt him again and will always be honest and upfront with him now. We talked about the rules and he said they will be temporary and will be adjusted when we go to couples therapy. Now it's time to put in the work to repair the relationship. I know it will be a lot of work, but I'm prepared. Update 2. So next month I'll get married this fall. I was with an amazing guy and we worked through a lot of issues together. I thought I loved him and I think I still do, but not in love with him. About 3 months ago at my job, we got a new coworker who is very handsome and extremely attractive. I mean, I have never been so physically attracted to someone in my life. We started to deepen our friendship, but romantic feelings came. I repressed mine, but to my surprise he confessed his feelings to me as well. I told him we gotta think about our spouses, but our feelings continue to grow. He told me he stopped being affectionate with his wife because he feels like he is cheating on me when he does that. He only wants to be affectionate with me. I've started doing the same thing and haven't been intimate with my partner. The big thing is a lot of people will be hurt when this comes out. He can't divorce his wife right away because of finances, but he will as soon as possible. I have to call off the wedding, but I really don't want to hurt my current fiancé. When asked about her previous infidelity, OP says, "I have cheated before and I'm starting to realize it's because I didn't understand being in love. With the guy I'm seeing, we both aren't romantic with our current partners. I don't want to be with anyone but him. Also, he's going to divorce his wife. We have a plan for when his finances get straight. How is she justifying this affair? This is completely different. The first time I cheated was because I was selfish. This time it was because I fell in love with someone else. I didn't choose this. No one picks who they love. This whole experience has taught me how complex love is and that I've never been in love before. This is so hard on OP. That's not fair. I didn't want any of this to happen. It breaks my heart that I'm going to have to call off the wedding, but he's a great guy and I'm certain he will find someone else. I wish I loved him or didn't fall in love with someone else. Because life is more complicated than that. I don't want to hurt him and have been thinking, oh, the best way to tell him. You guys act like this doesn't hurt for me too. You guys are not being understanding or empathetic. When commenters tell OP she's gullible about the married guy, she keeps emphasizing, I'm going to tell my fiancé. But we can't tell the other guy's wife yet. He's trying to get his finances in order first. Update 3. I took everyone's advice and decided to end things with my fiancé. This was the hardest thing I had to do in my life. I know you guys think I'm a terrible person, but this is an unimaginable situation to find yourself in. I want everyone to know how much this hurts. I really wish I didn't fall in love with someone else. I wish I could make myself fall in love with my fiancé, but I can't. It took me so long to accept this. I hope you guys can understand that I can't convey this enough, that I care about my ex-fiancé. I know this will be best for both of us, even though it's hard right now. When asked if OOP told her ex-fiancé the truth, she says, I didn't lie. I told him the truth, that I fell in love with someone else. I told him I still care about him. I keep telling you all that I care about him and would never use him as backup. He's a great guy and there's a woman out there who will love him and be lucky to have him. There's no reason we both can't be happy. When commenters tell OOP that there is no way the married man is going to leave his wife for her, she says, he is going to divorce his wife. Unfortunately, divorce is extremely complicated, but he said he will keep me updated. It's not just finances but a lot of other legal stuff. Since I wasn't married yet, it was easy to end things. For him it's a lot more complicated than that. When commenters continue to call OOP gullible, she says, no, I was very clear in our conversation today that I want this figured out by the end of the year. That's plenty of time for him to figure out finances and legal stuff. That way by 2025 we can just focus on each other. Update 4. I realize I treated my fiancé horrible and received my karma. My coworker and his wife are getting a divorce because she found out he was cheating with multiple women. Plural, he's a disgusting animal. He lied to me and others pretending that we were the only ones. I ended things with him. I'm glad he's been exposed. Now, regarding my ex-fiancé, I've taken the time to reflect and realize he's actually my true love. I hate that I hurt him. I reached out again to him but he said he will always love me but he's done with me. That was painful to hear. I just can't get over what my coworker did in destroying multiple relationships including mine. It's painful to see and experience. Edit. I wasn't clear but I take responsibility for my actions. Just because I'm condemning his disgusting and manipulative behavior doesn't mean I'm justifying my actions. My actions were horrible but I've learned from them. We broke up just after a month of dating because my boyfriend gave me a very bad and sexist book. Now I'm happy with my same-age husband. I met my boyfriend in our master's program. We became friends over this past year and started dating and becoming serious shortly before I left the state for a summer internship. He gifted me a book to read, saying it was one he liked. It's A Spell for Chameleon, by Piers Anthony, a fantasy novel written several decades ago. I knew nothing about it prior, and began laughing at it 2 pages in because of how ridiculous the writing was, especially about women. We Skyped after I got through the first chapter, and I tried respectfully explaining my doubts about the book. He made a deal with me. Knowing I'm a big Harry Potter fan, he promised to give the HP series a chance, starting with Philosopher's Stone, if I gave his book a chance and kept reading. This rocked my world, and I had a sudden burst of motivation. I'm on chapter 3, and I cannot stand this book. It is one of the most sexist and misogynistic texts I have ever had to read, and it honestly makes me feel like crap. Not to mention it's just poorly written all around, painfully spoon-feeding obvious symbolism, and excessively throwing in fantasy creatures concepts that do nothing for the plot. The protagonist is a complete dillhole that I couldn't care less about, and as a reader, I don't want to follow him or anything in the fantasy world of Xanth. But of course, flat out telling my boyfriend those thoughts about a book he enjoys would be hurtful, and he has every right to have different preferences. I am shocked that he would recommend such a book to me though. He is a respectful and educated man, treating me very well and identifying as a proud feminist. This recommendation was out of left field. Does he not remember how hurtful the author's writing on women is? Did he read it at a young age, and has since grown? I can't expect him to hold his end of the bargain and read Harry Potter, which is fine, especially if it means not having to put myself through Piers Anthony's excuse for writing ever again. I like my boyfriend a lot. How do I respectfully tell him why I cannot invest in this book anymore? It's important to me that he realizes the negative messages being suggested, but I want to do this without insulting his taste or making him feel at fault. TL Doctor, boyfriend gave me a book to read, and I accepted. I think it's sexist and poorly written. How do I tell him that I cannot keep reading? Should I explain my concerns? Relevant comments. OP explains why the book is horrible. Example 1, I like beautiful girls, he said. And I like smart girls, but I don't trust the combination. I'd settle for an ordinary girl, except she'd get dull after a while. Sometimes I want to talk with someone intelligent, and sometimes I want to... He broke off. Her mind was like that of a child. It wasn't really right to impose such concepts on her. Example 2. That's the point, he said. I like variety. I would have trouble living with a stupid girl all the time, but you aren't stupid all the time. Ugliness is no good for all the time, but you aren't ugly all the time either. You are variety. And that is what I crave for the long-term relationship, and what no other girl can provide. Example 3. All women are the same inside, they differ only in appearance and talent. They all use men. Example 4, that whole rape trial in chapter 3. Example 5, Other girls managed to enhance their appearance by cosmetics or padding or specialized spells, but besides Sabrina all other females looked somewhat artificial. She was no enemy. This was the PG-2 example I mentioned. Example 6, there was much more of her he longed to see, and to touch, but that could come only after marriage. She was that sort of girl, and it was part of her appeal. The girls who had it didn't need to put it on casual display. PG-3, Mikatoba. Oh good lord. I looked up the book and thought, this couldn't be that bad, could it? I guess it is that bad. Top comment. The first thing to ask is when he last read this book. If, like you said, he hasn't read it since adolescence, he may not remember how truly awful it is. If he's read it recently and still recommended it, well, I'd be totally honest about how I felt about it. But that's just me. You can certainly just tell him you gave it a fair shake, but it wasn't your cup of tea. Update. The post was locked shortly after I put it up, so I wasn't able to comment back to most of you. I went through every comment and took them all into consideration. Thank you all for your thoughts. We Skyped the other night and the topic came up. I started by saying I liked him a lot and really do appreciate how much he's willing to share with me. He caught on to where I was going with this and started laughing. Then I started laughing. And I realized how silly small of a thing this all was. I guess I didn't want to risk hurting his feelings. When the reason why I didn't like the book came up, I explained, and he totally understood. It's been at least a decade since he's read the book, and he can see where I would feel uncomfortable. He will still consider reading the first HP book, since I gave his book a chance. And being a single dad, his kids also like the series, so it would be a chance for him to connect more with them. I ended by saying that I hope this doesn't discourage him from sharing more things he likes. If anything, it encourages me to find more that you'll appreciate. Q heart flutters. TLDR, good talk, he's awesome. New update. Hi. I would reply to this under the username you lazy chickbum, but it got locked a little over a year ago. Reddit banned me for sharing a mayor's office contact information lol, and I created this one shortly after. It's hilarious this post is being shared because it's from such a different time in my life. Your instincts are right. This relationship only lasted a month after this post. I took an opportunity to live and study abroad for a few months and it was clear that he didn't want anything that deep, dodged any conversation that required vulnerability, didn't like that I wasn't always 100% perky, etc. I also had a rough breakup before this and wasn't making the best judgment calls when it came to dating. I could have caught a few more things about him that give similar concerns now as this book recommendation then. So I called it off. Oh my god, then he suddenly wanted to make it work, and kept it up for over a year after the breakup. We weren't even together that long. He would text me as if we never ended, and I would shut it down. He eventually stopped, but I still get occasional notifications on LinkedIn that he viewed my profile. I'm now happily married to someone my age, not knocking appropriate relationships with age gaps. I'm good friends with a couple who are 12 years apart, but I dodged a bullet, folks. Thanks for giving me a good laugh with this flashback.
Am I the A for keeping the truth from my wife? Our baby's death was my fault, and I couldn't bear to tell her the devastating reality. I, male 25, and my wife, female 24, had our daughter Angela last year in November. We met at university. We dated for 2 years and got married after graduating. It's our first marriage and we are very in love. My wife, who we will call Kim, got pregnant during our honeymoon and we were both very excited. My parents are out of the picture and Kim only grew up with her dad. We both knew that we wanted to have children and give them the best life we could. Kim's pregnancy was normal. It was our first child. The baby was born healthy and beautiful. She had perfect chubby legs and round face. I never thought that one day I could love a woman more than I love Kim, but my daughter stole my heart completely. Everything was perfect, but we were very nervous. Since we didn't know anything about babies, Kim's father constantly called us and also gave me advice. My grandmother also taught us how to change her correctly and feed her. We were blessed with a lot of help. Kim's family came from their home country to meet our daughter for Christmas. They were going to stay until the new year, but on December 28th Kim's father had a heart attack and was taken to the emergency room. We went to the hospital and my father-in-law had to remain under observation since his condition was serious. To give you an idea, he might not wake up again. I told my wife that I would stay with her, but Kim asked me to go with Angela home. Whatever had to happen would happen in the next 24 hours. She didn't want to leave her father's side, but she didn't want to leave the baby at the hospital all night. We agreed that I would stay at home with Angela and she would stay at home with her father and her relatives at the hospital. The next 24 hours passed and my father-in-law began to improve. So the stay was extended to 48 hours, and for 72. Kim came to get some clothes and see our daughter, and she returned to the hospital. Due to her concern, I had not slept in those 2 days. So after giving her bottle to my daughter, I put her to sleep and I myself fell asleep. When I woke up, it was almost night. Angela was still asleep, so I decided to have a coffee and watch television. After 2 hours, I decided to check on her and she seemed asleep. However, my heart stopped when I realized that she had vomited, and when I picked her up she was cold. And I wasn't breathing. I panicked. I shook her, I patted her on the back, I just desperately wanted her to breathe again. I called an ambulance begging for help. The operator gave me instructions to do CPR. When the doctors arrived, we immediately went to the hospital. I called to Kim, and between my mess of tears and hyperventilation I tried to tell her what was happening. When we arrived, she was already there. Kim cried and screamed at the doctors, begging to save her. I did too. They did everything they could for about an hour, but in the end there was nothing to do. My baby died at only a month old. They explained to us that Angela had vomited while she was sleeping and choked on her own vomit. She tried to calm us down by explaining that this can happen and that it wasn't our fault. Kim and I are a mess. I haven't told her that I fell asleep while my daughter was dying. I haven't told her that I killed my daughter. I want to end all of this. I can't continue with this. I miss her. I want to hear her crying. Having her in my arms. I want to change her diapers, change her clothes. I want to hug her with all my strength. I want to see her. I miss her so much. I hate myself so much. It should be me and not her. It's my damn fault. I want all this pain. It's over. I want to end everything. Relevant comments stoked for breakfast. Not the asshole. I'm a doctor. This does happen. Not just to children but also to old adults who aren't able to adequately manage their own secretions, etc. See a therapist and a psychiatrist. Both are better than just one. And you'll get through it. You're not the asshole. At all. Sometimes bad things happen. It sucks. Mary Moose 923, not asshole. Please get grief counseling. This is not your fault. Even if you and your wife weren't dealing with a family emergency, and even if you weren't exhausted, your darling baby could have passed in exactly the same way during the night, or a nap. Even the doctor told you that it wasn't your fault. Like any other parent, you feel responsible for what happened. That's natural. So please get therapy. If not for yourself, think of your wife. How would she cope with losing both you and your daughter? Also, encourage your wife to get therapy. She's hurting as much as you are. New post, wife's post. Editor's note, below is the wife's post placed in the correct section of the timeline to assist with the context. Her post took place 4 days after OP's post. Plus added paragraph breaks for readability. It's not easy for me to talk about this. It happened very recently and I don't like talking about my problems with strangers either. But right now, I, female 24, feel alone and lost because I can't talk to anyone. This is the situation. As the title says, my baby died recently and my family is broken. This happened on New Year's while my husband, male 25, was taking care of her. My family, my father male 66, my aunt female 57 and my 2 cousins female 28 male 30, had come to visit my husband and I to meet our newborn daughter for Christmas. I told my father that we could go ourselves halfway through this year, 2024, since due to his delicate health I was worried about him making such a long trip. But he insisted because he wanted to meet his granddaughter. For a few days everything was fine. My dad loved my daughter very much. He kept saying that she was just like me when I was born. I was able to see my cousins and my aunt again. She was the closest thing I've ever had to a mother. Everything was fine until my dad started feeling bad a few days after Christmas dinner. In a moment he just collapsed due to severe chest pain. It didn't take us long to understand that it was because of his heart. So we took him to the emergency room where he stayed for at least 3 days. During all that time, my husband stayed at home with my daughter, because I did not want to leave my father, since his condition was serious at first. When he started to get better I went back to my house to see how my daughter was doing. I felt calm when I saw that my husband was taking good care of her on his own. However, I asked him if he needed me to stay with him. He told me to be calm, that he would take care of everything and that I focused on accompanying my dad. My husband knows how important my father is to me, so I was grateful to have a man like him supporting me. I returned calmly to the hospital, but a few hours later my husband called me crying. It took him a while to calm down enough to tell me that my baby was dying. He had drowned. I remember very little what happened after that call. At one point my husband had already arrived at the hospital with my daughter, but they were unable to save her. Before you think it was negligence, no, my husband did not neglect her. The doctor explained to us that the baby died of sudden infant death syndrome. She choked on her own vomit while she was sleeping. My husband could not have prevented it unless he had been watching her non-stop. 24 hours a day, so no, it wasn't his fault. My daughter's body was cremated as my culture dictates, and her ashes are now in my house, in her room. The most difficult thing was to tell my father. He woke up from his comatose state on January 1st, but I couldn't go see him until the next day. Prudently, my father had not been told anything about what happened. I tried to put good face until my father asked to see my daughter. I tried to excuse myself, but eventually he had to find out only a couple of days later. I wish he hadn't told me since it caused him to relapse, and this time, it has taken him a long time to recover. During the entire month of January my cousins returned home, but father stayed with me at my house along with my aunt to help me take care of him. My husband practically stopped doing anything. I focused all my energy on taking care of my father and maintaining the house in order. It was a longer and more difficult time for everyone. My father was finally able to return to his house on January 30th, and since then it's just my husband and I. He doesn't talk to me, he doesn't eat, he doesn't sleep well, he can't work, he works from home. He doesn't want to talk to anyone, not even me. My family has tried to talk to me, but I don't want to talk either. I just ask for updates on my father. I don't let them ask me about anything else. For my part, I'm back to work and I'm thinking about taking extra hours since I spent part of my savings on hospital bills. But I really want to get away from my house. I feel like I'm suffocating there. I can't get into my baby's room without crying. My husband, for his part, spends most of his day there. I don't know what to do. I cry to my baby every night. I cry into his clothes, his stuffed animals, his blankets, until I fall asleep. Now I'm eating twice as much. I devour the portions that my husband doesn't want, and I keep asking for more. The house is a disaster. I feel like we are both dying and we are doing nothing to prevent it. Relevant comments leader_inside. I think you need to read this. It sounds like your husband posted it a few days ago. It was deleted, but I found the post on Reddit. I'm so unbelievably sorry for your loss. I'm 34 weeks pregnant with a baby girl right now. I read the other post shortly after it was posted and haven't stopped thinking about your family. Please consider getting professional help for yourself and your husband if you can get him to agree. If you ever want to scream into a void who will just listen, please feel free to DM me. I'm praying for peace and healing for your family. And again, I'm so sorry for your loss. Edit to add, not the wife. My God, it's him. I have to talk with him big_fly_1561. I'm so sorry I can even be able to imagine the pain and heartbreak. Just take it 1 hour at a time, one day at a time. Anytime you can do something for yourself, do it, but the main thing is to focus on working through the grief. When you are ready to talk, I would suggest you and your husband do both individual counseling and marriage counseling. A loss like this is incredibly hard on both of you individually and as a couple. Try not to lose your husband or yourself. This wasn't anyone's fault, and I hope in time you and your husband can work through the grief and pain and find joy in life once more. My heart goes out to you. The fact that you're even here expressing this story shows how strong you are. Wife. Thank you very much. I don't want to lose my marriage. We haven't talked about divorce. Actually, we haven't talked at all. I know we need therapy. Thank you for your words. Update. Hello. Am I the A? I came here a few months ago to vent about the loss of my daughter. To be honest, I didn't see the post until a week later and I saw that my account was suspended. It's not important since it was just a discard account. So I opened another one just to let you know that I have read all your comments. Kim and we are fine. However, we are in the process of being fine. Kim is also an active Reddit user and saw my post. We talked a lot, we cried, and I have to say I'm glad she saw it. Since Angela is not with us, I have spent most of the time in her room, and Kim returned to work very quickly since she no longer needed maternity leave. But our therapist gave us a lot of advice on how to deal with grief. I have been diagnosed with depression and I'm working on it with the help of Kim. She's also in therapy. We support each other in every way we can. My father-in-law is as well as can be. He recovered, but he hasn't been well since we told him about Angela. Kim calls him practically every day. She can't do much more since he lives in another country and it's already difficult enough for us. Right now we are looking to sell our house and move to a smaller place. We bought the house thinking about having a big family, but we are going to postpone that for the moment. No matter how broken I am inside, my wife is my priority right now, so I have to prioritize my marriage. I will not update again. I wanted to assure all the noble souls who supported us that we are still here and we appreciate your words and support. You're all wonderful people. God bless you. Relevant comments. Dehydrated rain. Absolutely heartbreaking, but it might be better for her. Staying home and unoccupied gives the mind a lot more time to focus on the empty room and intrusive thoughts. 8 hours of work distraction and a good therapist/psych might speed up healing. I'm not saying this to sound callous. I speak from personal experience. Family emergencies for 2 people, but not as bad as this story. Crazy 11. A part of me just broke seeing her comment, "My God, it's him." 2 parents grieve the loss of their newborn baby. Neither can handle that grief and are rapidly slipping away, and they're both so hurt that they can't even talk to each other about it due to all the guilt and heartbreak. They both reach out to strangers online hoping for a place to vent, have unbiased people judge their actions, and just some place to put this all down. Without the members of these communities pointing out how similar her post was to her husband's, they might still be both grieving alone. He would still be shattered in that room contemplating suicide and feeling like it was all his fault, and she would be working herself to death. To all those involved, their child died and that's beyond a tragedy, but you might have just saved their lives. Catmo, I remember reading the original post by my husband when it was new. I had no idea there was an update. I'm so glad there was one. The original has been living rent-free in my head ever since I read it. This was definitely a tough read. I'm so glad this worked in their favor and helped them get the help they each so desperately need. As a parent, things happen all the time that are out of our control. Even if it's something completely out of our hands, I think it's a pretty natural response to blame ourselves in some way. We're supposed to be their protectors. It's hard to remind ourselves that it is literally impossible to protect them every second of every day, but it is oh so important. You can drive yourself mad with that kind of worry. He could have been sleeping right next to her bed and still not been able to do anything to save her. These kinds of things tend to be silent and happen quickly. I'm glad that Kim understood this and didn't blame him or resent him for it. It's easy for one parent to do to the other. It's hard to not have someone to blame in a truly blameless situation. I hope one day he will be able to truthfully tell himself that this was not his fault. It's going to take time, but with them supporting each other, they will get there eventually. Losing a child is not something you ever get over. They will never really recover from this, and that's okay, but hopefully they can learn how to manage their grief in a healthy way and remember their baby fondly. To any parents out there who have lost a child, I am deeply sorry for your loss. I hope all of you have found at least a little bit of peace along the way. From one parent to another, I'm sending love and hugs to you all.
When a girl in the gym asked for help while recording, I refused, sparking an unexpected turn of events. Was I wrong? I think I acted rudely with a girl in the gym and wanted to get opinions on if I was the AH in this situation. I, 41M, go to the gym early in the morning around 5:30 a.m. There are generally very few people that come to the gym at that time. There is a girl, early 20s, that also comes to the gym at the same time. We always say hello to each other and have small talk between our sets. She comes in early because the gym is empty, and she likes to record herself working out as she wants to be a fitness influencer or something. She seems dedicated and we have known each other for at least a year. This morning, as I was working out, she came to me and asked for help. She was very excited and told me that she wanted to go for a PR on barbell squat. She asked me if I could spot her as she was not confident if she would be able to do it. I said okay, as this is not the most uncommon thing. For people who are unfamiliar, this is an exercise where you carry a barbell with weights on your back and perform a squat. The spotter has to stand behind the person and support the person in case they fail to get up. As she was getting ready, I saw her phone in the corner and asked her if I could be off camera or if she can stop recording. She said she really wanted to record herself doing it and I will look good on camera. I told her that I really do not want to be on camera as my wife or co-workers may watch the video if she posts it online and may not look good for me. Another reason that I did not tell her was that she was wearing a very revealing outfit, small sports bra and tight shorts, and I really did not feel comfortable being recorded standing behind her. She promised me that she will record it for herself, and not post the video. However, I just did not want to be recorded. I told her that I really feel uncomfortable. And if she waits for 30 minutes, one of the trainers may be able to help her. She became really upset and asked me why I'm making the situation weird. She accused me of sexualizing her. She asked me if she was a man, would I have done it? I felt she had a point as I have done it for other people. I told her that I would be okay doing it, but I just don't want to be recorded doing it. She again went on a rant about me body shaming her and me being uncomfortable with her perfectly fine outfit. I felt bad that I upset her as she was just trying to work out. I have also asked people to spot me in past, and people always helped. However, I just did not want to be recorded. Am I the to refuse to spot her because she was recording it? I don't want her to feel that it was because of her clothes, or because she is a girl. However, as a married man, I need to observe some boundaries and really don't want to be recorded in that way with a girl half my age. I am also worried that she recorded our whole conversation and may post it online. I do not know what I should do in this situation and am a bit worried. Relevant comments. Commenter, NTA. People who are pointing out the line of how you think it would look inappropriate if a coworker or wife saw you aren't familiar with lifting. If she reached failure, it would absolutely look bad on you, because people don't understand what spotting and having to assist with squats looks like. OP, that was exactly what went through my mind. Plus, who knows what commentary someone can put on top of those videos to make it go viral. Update. I had posted on a different forum 3 weeks ago about me refusing to help a girl in the gym for spotting her barbell squat because she was recording us. I did not think it would blow up so much that my wife got this story on her TikTok. What happened after was pretty unexpected and my life is a bit absurd right now. I was worried that she would post our conversation about me refusing her help online and show me as the bad guy. I told my wife about the conversation, and she said that she has seen posts where young girls do add nasty voiceovers and make men my age look like creeps for views. My wife told me that I should just complain to the gym management about her for recording me without my consent, just to get ahead of things. When I went to the gym next week, I saw her again. I tried to keep my distance, but she kept on smiling at me. As I finished my sets, she came to me and asked me if we could talk. She wanted to apologize for her behavior from the previous day and how it was wrong of her to assume that I would be okay with her recording me. It was a pleasant surprise, as I was not expecting that. I told her that it was okay, and I just don't like to be recorded in general. She followed me outside and continued the conversation. She asked me how long I have been working out and I could advise her on her form. I told her that there are some really good personal trainers in the gym I could recommend to her, but she told me that she is unemployed and cannot afford them. She told me she will buy me a coffee if I can give her some pointers. At this point, I felt I was just being rude and told her sure, and we went to a nearby coffee shop. Her name is Haley. She graduated last year, moved back to her mom's house and is looking for a job. She was very chubby last year and wants to look like the TikTok fitness models and is trying hard to get in shape. We had a nice conversation, and I was able to help her with some of her questions. She already knew my name and asked me if my wife would be okay if she follows me on Instagram. I told her that the main purpose of that account is for my wife to spy on my friends' lives, so I generally don't use it. She asked me if I use Snapchat, and I had to remind her that I am twice her age. This is where it got crazy. When I came home, I told my wife about what happened. My wife loves her Reels and TikTok and wanted to see if she ever posted the video from the previous week. I only knew that her first name was Haley and how she looked and told my wife about it. When I came back from work in the evening, my wife was already home and sitting on the sofa. She was grinning ear to ear and told me to immediately sit next to her. Apparently, this girl had been posing about me and calling me her gym crush for the last 2 months. My face is blurred out in all the videos. A lot of videos were of her sitting in her car every morning and making up completely fictional romantic stories about our interactions. Each video had like 100 plus likes, which my wife says is not a lot, but feels like a lot. She had posted some videos of us just passing each other and smiling, or our conversation where I was telling her to stop recording, with a voiceover about how I approached her in the gym and complimented her body. There was a video from that morning about her coming to me while I was packing up, with her saying how I asked her out for a coffee. She is just making up fictional romantic bullshit for getting likes, and people were commenting and cheering for her. There were also other videos of her working out and posing in the gym locker room. My wife was laughing uncontrollably about how big of a sucker I am and how I'm internet famous now. I told her this needs to stop, but my wife insisted that she is too invested in the drama now and wants to see what happens next. She said that this girl is really young, and just trying to establish herself and get more followers. Plus, she has not done anything inappropriate and is not showing my face in the videos. My wife just wants me to play along and see what crazy Haley does next. So for the last 2 weeks, I have been going to the gym, talking to her every day, and my wife keeps me updated on what story she came up with for the day. We go for a coffee every Wednesday and I am mentoring her about nutrition and what she should focus on, to the best of my abilities. It's all a game for my wife, and I do want Haley to succeed as long as she does not cross a line. However, the whole thing feels really crazy, and I'm too old to deal with this shit. I am not sure how long I can keep up with the act. Her behavior seems innocent, but also, I'm getting a bit uncomfortable with the whole thing now. Relevant comments. Did the girl know OOP is married? OP. Yes. She knows I'm married. I wear my ring in the gym, and also I talk about my wife all the time to her. I also feel it's a bit weird for a 22-year-old person to make up stories. My wife feels she is just using me as an NPC in her fiction to gain more viewers and create drama. We discussed it and she told me about how some girls just make up stories about bad first dates on TikTok as it gets them a lot of views. My wife feels it's weird, but I need to see the humor in this situation. At least it's entertaining and she wants to know where her story goes next. What was all about in the coffee discussion? OP. What are the coffee discussions like? It seems weird for her to do that. If it is just for TikTok attention, it's easier for her to make stuff up. The coffee discussions are very fitness oriented, and she genuinely has legit questions. We do discuss stuff about our lives, mostly hers, and she shares her struggles in getting a job and life in general for a Gen Z person. However, she has never said anything inappropriate. I feel she must have had some footage of me passing her and smiling and greeting her and just used that in her edits. I feel unsafe because my autistic neighbor exhibits strange behavior. He constantly follows me when I take my dog outside at night. Hi all. I've never posted here before, but I've been thinking about writing this for a while now, since I'm really starting to feel uncomfortable and could really use some advice for who to contact and what to do. I 23F live in student housing as a graduate student. I have my own apartment in a small multifamily complex. There are about 4 other students there, one of which I will refer to as S, 45M. S has autism. I know these terms are outdated, but for context, his autism is rather profound. And he has lots of social difficulties and stims in conversation. I previously haven't had any real difficulties interacting with him, especially since I used to be an instructor for children with autism and am used to handling various social behaviors from people on the spectrum. But in the past couple of months, his behavior towards me has changed, and I'm at a loss for what to do. I take my dog out at various times throughout the night to relieve herself. There is only one way out of the complex, and I have to pass by S's apartment in order to do this. But after living here for about 6 months, I didn't have any trouble with this. Sometimes, he'd come out to say hi, and I'd let him pet my dog. But this was always at an appropriate time. About a month and a half ago, things started to get weird when I took my dog out at 4:30 a.m., which isn't unusual, and saw him peeking at me through the window. He then opened the door and came outside to sit down and pet my dog. She started barking and I politely told him that I can't have her barking at this time of night and took her inside. I'll admit I felt a bit uncomfortable with him coming out so late at night. After all, he is a large older man and I'm a very small female. For the next month, I would notice S lingering outside the apartments a lot more often. I found it disconcerting when he was doing this late at night. My partner, 20F, came to visit for a month, and while she was there, his behavior got even stranger. Nearly every time I took my dog outside, he would open his door and come out to talk to me, which made me uncomfortable because it seemed he was actively watching for me. But when I asked my partner to come out with me, he would open the door, see her with me, and then close the door without a word. It got to the point where I no longer wanted to take my dog out alone and eventually put up a security camera for peace of mind. The day my security package was actually delivered, my partner was up having a school Zoom meeting in my kitchen, while I slept. Apparently, during the meeting, she started to hear him yell my name outside my door, followed by, "Package." And she ignored it, but it went on for several minutes. This made me really nervous to hear about, and after I put the camera up the behavior slowed. But the other day, my partner went back to her home state again, and S's behavior changed again. He came up to me on the way back from doing laundry in our shared laundry room and asked me if I was a lesbian. I was kind of taken aback, but figured since he has autism, he doesn't really understand if a question is inappropriate. But 2 days later, it got worse. I was taking my garbage out, and there's a small alley between our apartments and the dumpsters. There is only one way in or out. It was nearly midnight and I checked the cameras first to ensure I was alone before going out, but when I turned around, he was standing in the alley, nearly blocking my way out. He looked on the verge of tears. I awkwardly said hi and stepped around him so I wouldn't be cornered in the alley, and he started confessing a variety of emotional and family problems to me. I could see he was having a hard time, so I was polite and answered him and advised him to see a therapist if he needed someone to talk to. He then said something odd to me about not having a partner and how he wanted one really badly, not to put me on the spot, and mentioned he knew about my current partner. Of course, now I think I see why he's been acting so strange towards me. Here's the thing though. He's still following me outside when I take my dog out, and sometimes will just stand there quietly and watch if I'm not engaging with the conversations he's trying to start. I have started carrying pepper spray and will admit I'm feeling very concerned for my safety. My mom says it's a harmless crush and I should just politely tell him to stop cornering me, but I don't know how to safely have this conversation, just in case I may actually be in danger, and I don't feel comfortable doing so. Any advice on what I should tell him to make him understand his behavior is making me feel unsafe? Should I even tell him? Even though he has autism, I feel like he should know not to corner me in an alley at midnight. My school does not have many people working during the summer, and I'm not sure who I should report this to, if I do. Several people close to me who have met him, including someone who is also on the autism spectrum, are telling me to not confront him and just report this behavior. But again, my parents just say his autism is making it difficult to understand that his sudden change in behavior is off-putting, and he's getting over a harmless crush. Either way, I feel unsafe at times, and I want to hear some advice from you guys as to what I should do. Advice from anyone on the spectrum would be especially appreciated, since I want to know if maybe I'm just misinterpreting his challenged social skills as something more concerning. Thank you so much. Update. Thank you all for the replies. You guys are so helpful and have helped me realize the danger I'm in. I want to believe this is the best case scenario, where he just doesn't realize his behavior is inappropriate. Logically, this is the most likely case, but I have to base my actions around a worst case scenario. My gut says something is very wrong. You guys are right that I need to listen to that. My safety has to take priority over his feelings, and I will be doing everything I can to avoid interactions with him. This weekend, he hasn't come up to me directly. He has, however, been coming outside at night after 2:30 a.m., searching the yard where I usually take my dog, and then going straight back inside, 2 nights in a row now, as caught multiple times by my camera. Don't know why else he would do this other than to look for me, and this makes me especially unnerved that he's only attempting that approach at night now, as if he's trying to catch me off guard. I called my parents and broke down crying after reading all the comments you guys left in this thread, and they're finally taking me seriously. My mom purchased me a stun gun, which I will not be going outside without. I'm also not leaving the house alone anymore at all, not even to take the trash out. My dog will be accompanying me for everything. I didn't mention it in my previous post, but my dog is a pit bull, and even though she's the sweetest and has never once been aggressive, she is fiercely loyal, and I believe she could do some serious damage if someone attacked me. I also put in contact alarms for my windows and got a better deadbolt for my door, and my partner has also offered to come stay with me to help keep me safe. He has never approached me when I'm not alone. So for everyone who's been concerned for my safety, thank you, and I hope that shows I'm taking serious steps to keep safe. This morning, I submitted a report to the school and explained the situation in depth, including sending them footage from my security camera of him following me and my dog outside late at night. I requested they keep my report anonymous. I asked them to do a mental welfare check on him and connect him with counseling resources, and as some of you have suggested, I'm asking them to call and remind him not to approach people late at night while they're on their own. Those were my only specific requests, but I told them I need intervention, and I need it now. I got a call back within a few hours and learned my case was fortunately assigned to a man who's worked with autistic adults for years prior to transferring to work at the university, so he's very understanding of the situation and why it's so complex, and will be working on connecting us with resources for his mental health and to point out which behaviors are appropriate, inappropriate. I'm hoping this is the best case scenario, and that this intervention will be positive. If it's not, however, then I will be asking the housing department to temporarily move me. I feel much better with the help and communication I'm getting from the school, but I will continue to treat this like I'm in very real danger, because I might be. This post blew up, so I will update it if something more substantial happens. But for now, the situation is reported and you can assume no news is good news. Am I the asshole for asking my husband to help our child while cooking for family? Relatives called me out for treating him like a servant. I, 30F, was assigned to cook for my husband's family during a week-long trip, 11 adults 4 kids. I sat down to eat after cooking for a few hours and our child asked for a condiment and a drink. I asked my husband, 40s, if he'd mind getting it and he had no issue and got up. My meal and his aunt had a fit about this and said, why am I treating him like a servant? I could get up and take care of it so my husband could relax. He had been all day. They've been cold and mean and not speaking to me. I'm wondering if I should have done it myself or if I should just ask my husband if we can go home. I've got 4 days left. Relevant comments. Top comment. The reason OOP is voted info. Please explain how you were assigned to cook. Nobody except my supervisor assigns me to do anything, and I still have the option of saying no, though there could be consequences. In what way were you making your husband do anything? He could have said, no. OP, sorry I tried to make the post short. His aunt rented an Airbnb. We paid it back. I'm a really good cook and his family loved my cooking, so it was my night to do the cooking. All the women were assigned a night. Commenter, are your mill and his aunt typically set in traditional gender roles? Why in the world would getting the condiment and drink make him a servant and not you? Also, do you have to cook all week or was this just your night? NTA, but if you ask to go home, you'll really turn this into something big. OP, more info. I tried to make it short in the op. This was just my night to cook. But it is all the women that are cooking. His aunt is a single mother and her sons have never been taught to cook and their girlfriend's idea of cooking is PBJ. She set the chores as this was her idea and she paid for it. We all sent the money to her. I just feel so low. I'm stuck in this tiny bedroom, smallest in the Airbnb BTW, and being the only married couple kinda felt like a slight, while everyone outside is relaxing. Husband was hanging with me but his mother asked to speak with him. It's been an hour. I tried to go out but they all got silent and quiet and just stared at me till I went inside. Commenter, that sucks. Did your husband stick up for you? Or offer to help you cook? OP. He did stick up for me and say it's no big deal, but his aunt was yelling at him to sit down and his mother just glared at me. I love my husband to death. He's good at a great many things, but I didn't feel like getting food poisoning tonight. Tensions already seemed really high as I took the boat out and I was wearing an appropriate two-piece. Think sports bra kinda bathing suit with long sleeves and swimming shorts. But his aunt called me a hussy and only little girls wear two pieces and I need to respect the PPL around me. Commenter. Are the other people in the larger bedrooms there alone, while the two of you have to share the smallest? OP, it's a 6-bedroom house. Only one other family member brought their partner. But they all brought their kids. His mom originally wanted us to have a different room but his aunt refused. She's like the family bully. Is what I'm guessing. Husband came back and we are talking about what went down. Will update, edit. So his aunt arranged the Airbnb, she assigned the rooms and the chores. She has made other comments to me on this trip that have made me feel bad about myself. Husband just came in after being outside talking with his family for the last hour and he won't go into details but said that we will be staying, but if they say one more comment or if I feel any more discomfort we will be leaving. We want to stay as we have some fun events that we don't want our child missing out on tomorrow and Monday. Relevant comments. Commenter, NTA. If they're not speaking to you, just consider that a bonus. I wouldn't want to hear anything assholes like that have to say anyway. If you really want to get a dig in though, you could say to them, if I knew that's all I had to do to get you two to shut your yapping cake holes, I would have done it sooner. OP, that's kinda my plan. Just avoid and do our own thing the best we can. He didn't say much but that his aunt doesn't want her son's GF to think she can boss him around like I do my husband. Sexist, right? He said that this will be the last time he makes me suffer going on a vacation with them and will take me to some tropical island next year to make up for it. Commenter, I just read your edit and I agree with the idea of staying so your kid doesn't miss out on fun, but what the hell is this? He won't go into details but said that we will be staying. OP, he told me some of the brief details but didn't want to repeat the sexist and rude comments his aunt made while his mother just stayed quiet. He did tell me that his aunt didn't want her son's GF to think that they could boss her son around like I do my husband or to dress inappropriately like myself. I've got a lot of insecurities about my body image and he tries to protect me. I'm 5'2", 110 pounds and worked hard to lose a lot of baby weight, so I was proud and thought wearing an appropriate, very covered, two-piece would be okay. I was called a hussy. Update. So this morning while getting ready the cousin's GF came and spoke to me and said that what they said was completely wrong and disrespectful and that she doesn't believe what they said about me. Made me very happy. Anyway, as we were heading out to go hiking, his aunt couldn't help herself I guess and said at least I don't look like I belong on a pole like I did yesterday. My 5-year-old yelled at her and said to stop being mean to my mommy before we could say anything. My husband had a few choice words for her in front of everyone. So anyway, we are driving home. Relevant comments. Commenter. So what treats will the kiddo be getting for defending mom? Seems like you're doing a good job there and have good backup from your spouse. OP. We are taking him out to his favorite restaurant for dinner once we get back into town and to his favorite ice cream shop to have a sundae. My husband really went for the kill after his aunt's comment cause I was lacing up my hiking boots. He had our son go up to the room and get his bag and bent down to help lace up my boot for me. He then told his aunt that I am his partner, not his maid or servant, and that she was a jealous witch that attacks me because she wishes she looked as good as I did, and that he was lucky to have a hard-working wife and mother to his child who also looked amazing. That we do things for each other as a team and that she is just a miserable old witch and we wouldn't be seeing them again. They've been blowing up his phone but he turned it off. OP follows up with, I won't say we are perfect or never have fights or innocent spats over the most silly things. But one thing is for sure, after 15 years we won't let each other be disrespected and we always have each other's backs. That is what we are hoping to teach our son. That even though things may get rough in life we handle them with grace and respect and always have each other.